Looks like we're live. What's going on, everybody? Everybody's trickling in. I guess I can share these links, get them out there. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. Yeah, hear myself in the background there. Notifications are working. Yeah, YouTube works pretty quickly. Facebook's slacking. It might not even go off. Wow. See that? I'm sorry. I got looking at a video there. Somebody. All right, let me see here. Let me pull up all the links. I'll check it out later. Should have seen it before I started. Something I definitely want to check out. Anyway, spread the link, spread the love. All right, let's see here. What's going on, Phil? What's up, Curtis? What's going on, Mud Flat? Good to see you, brother. Let me get these links out there. Gotta spread the love. Wish I could do this pressing one button, just preload it with the websites or the Facebook pages I want to share to, and have it automatically do that. Maybe one of these days Facebook will listen to me and make that easy. They limit what I can do as it is. Just a second. Yeah, I hate all this dead air. Looks like some pretty interesting post in there. I have to come back and check it out. So bear with me. This is the part I hate the worst. I'm doing all this. It's the worst part. But it gets stored out to everybody, so I guess it's good for that. Gotta do it to share the message. And I'll probably be, this now here probably be the last one that it lets me, if it lets me. Let me. Let's try this one now. Yep, that's what I figured. That's usually the one that won't let me do. Let's see here. Okay. All right, let's see here. What's going on, Jason? That's a lot of people will use syrups instead of just the blackberries. So, I guess that's steeping in blackberries. One thing, a lot of people will use a syrup, if they want to post flavor. They'll add a little sugar and, blackberry, boil it down, kind of like if he's making a jelly, boil it all down, muddle it real good, and then you clear out all your pulp and your seeds, of course, and then add some sugar to it, stir it in, and kind of make a blackberry syrup, and then add that and just, add it to whatever taste, as you add it. You're not going to be able to read a hydrometer anymore after you add that sugar. Uh, so you'll have to use a refractometer or something else to measure alcohol. But um, so if you start at 90 proof and you add just a little bit of syrup, you're still going to be right at 88, 89 proof or so. It's not going to take your proof down a lot, but once you add those sugars, it'll totally mess with your hydrometer because it will thicken, the alcohol. It's not just alcohol and water anymore. It now has sugar in it, right? So, but make you a little syrup. Muddle up some blackberries and cook them down and steep them and let them make it, like a tea, and then um, strain. Use cheesecloth or a brew bag, corner of a brew bag or whatever, and strain out your, pulp out of your berries. I guess you can use a strainer if you have one fine enough, and get your seeds out, and just add a little sugar in there, make a syrup, and just keep adding it, until you get the flavor that you want. I was looking at something earlier before I logged on. It was talking about, doing that with back sweetened wines. You pretty much use the same principle back sweetened wines, except when you back sweetened wines like that, you need to, and you can use concentrate, fruit juice concentrates and stuff like that as well, to add a lot of flavor with just a little bit of, of the mixture. That way you don't affect your proof a lot. But they do the same thing with wines. But when you do it with wine and you're adding more sweeteners back into the wine that are fermentable, make sure you add some potassium sorbate first and let that sit for a day or two, and kill off all the yeast. Basically, it neuters them so they can't breed anymore. So when you add a little bit of sugar to it, it won't start fermenting. The sugar that you add to it that you want to back sweeten it with, it'll kill all that off and basically neuter the yeast so they can't reproduce anymore and make new yeast, to eat those sugars up. And but just add a little bit at a time of the syrup until you get, the desired taste that you want, and because there's no right or wrong answer for that. It just, how strong a flavor do you want it? For some people, just a light blackberry finish is all they're really looking for, and some people, they want the blackberry to slap them in the face. So, you know, it just depends on, how much flavor that you want to come through, and how much color, that you want to be impacted. If you want to try to keep it clear, then and try to infuse those flavors, and see if you can infuse them in there before. But if infusing doesn't give you, quite the flavor that you want, it's not, going to be a smacky down flavor, then yeah, just use the syrup and mix the syrup in. Yeah, I think he'll feel better. He's got a lot of good recipes and stuff, man. He tries a lot of different things and has a lot of interesting stuff going on. What's going on, Dutch? First ever run tonight. What should I put in my thumper? Just a simple cracked corn mash. I'd be honest with you, man. For the first time, you don't have to use a thumper. A lot of people think because it comes with it, you need it. For a simple corn liquor. Unless you're trying to double it and get higher proof or something, just take it out of line and just run it without a thumper. Get you that good corn flavor carrying through. Usually, what I put in my thumper was tails from the prior run, so I'd get a little bit more volume alcohol out of my run. And so if you this time you won't be able to do that because it's your first run, but I recommend just run it straight to the condenser, right out of your boiler, straight into your condenser, and make sure that you don't put too much in your boiler to where you're puking into your condenser. You don't want to do that. But and that's what for beginners. That thumper helps the beginners because sometimes if they fill their pot too much, it'll catch a lot of that puking. Like a slobber box would. But yeah, make sure you leave yourself a pretty good gap at the top for foam and stuff, and just go ahead and run it without that thumper. But save your tails, run it all the way down and save your tails and a couple few jars. I don't know how big your steel is, but save it in a few jars or a bucket or whatever. And on your next run, just add those tails to the pot right before you get ready to run, and you'll get an increased amount of alcohol production. But yeah, I just run that corn liquor without a thumper. A thumper is kind of a lot of people think that you need to use it all the time, and it's not. It's kind of a specialized thing for specific things. Generally, back in the past, it was used to increase yield and proof. Increase yield by adding the tails, and increase proof by catching water. So we'd add alcohol to the thumper, and in the form of tails, and as it recondenses and redistills inside that thumper, it leaves behind water, and it also leaves back behind some flavor as well. But with that extra tails, you increase your alcohol production, and that's what it was all about back in the day. Is alcohol production is more inclined in producing more higher proof, and more inclined to profit. So really, you lose flavor using that thumper. So if you can get by without using it, come off the drip at 130 to 40 without it. You'll find that you carry a lot more flavor forward, and you really don't need it. Now, if you want to increase your production, you can, add those tails to it, or you can just add the tails to the pot, before you run it, and don't even need the thumper, and just add those tails in there and run it, and you'll have all that extra alcohol distill off again. So that would be especially for a first timer, just run without it. Just take it pipe out of line and just go straight out of the pot into the condenser. But just make sure you don't put too much in the pot where you puke into the condenser. What's going on, Jeff? Yeah, you could add some mash to it, or wash, depending on whatever you got, or must. Most people around Dutch will call it a mash, regardless of whether it's a wine must or a sugar wash or a grain bill. Most people just try to just catch all term for a lot of people will be mash. So they'll talk about, a sugar mash, instead of wash, or, a brandy mash instead of a must, but it's kind of a catch all term. Yeah. Yeah. Before you start adding flavor after you distill, get it to the proof you want and then add the flavor. Or, like if you're shooting for a 90 and you've got your syrup, start with 95 and start adding syrup. And, by the time you get to where you want to be, it's probably going to maybe reduce the proof 5-ish. So you'll be close to the 90 that you wanted with the extra flavor in there. So start a little little higher proof than you want. It doesn't take the proof down a lot, but it will look like it on your hydrometer because of the sugars in it. What's going on, Jim? Trying a new recipe. Awesome. 3 pounds frosted flakes, strained it off, added 10 pounds of sugar and more water to get the spec gravity where I need it. Wish me luck. Awesome, brother. I've heard of the flake recipe. Those work just fine. Now, next time you can cook those flakes. You can take those flakes and cook it up to, wherever you want to add your amylase. So if you have the powder, heat it up to 155. If you've got the high temp alpha, heat those flakes up to 185. Now you don't. The benefit of using flakes is they're gelatinized. So you don't have to worry about cooking it and steeping it for a long period of time and gelatinizing. When you get flaked like that, the steamrolling process, they take those grains and run it through a steamroller, and it flattens them out, and it's real hot rollers, and it flattens them out and steams it, and it instantly cooks it and gelatinizes it. So when you get the flake corn like that, the big benefit is you don't have to cook it anymore, but you still have to convert it, and you still have to add your amylase and do all that. So if you want to go that route with the frosted flakes, it would add a little bit more sugar, but it's frosted flakes to begin with. It's got a lot of sugar on it, and you've added the sugar, so it's not critical, but it'll save you a little bit, and you can, kind of convert those starches and get used to doing that. But yeah, you can do bran flakes, all kinds of different cereals. I mean, they're grains; they're just pretty much cooked grains and stuff. Yeah, should work out pretty well. Now it gets to, when you get to where you're doing Fruit Loops and Sugar Smacks, now, I don't know. We might be getting a little out there. I'm sure Philbilly's got a Fruit Loop. He does all kinds of stuff. He's got a lot of viewers, and they send him in all kinds of, try this. If you ever tried that, try this, and so he'll, or a lot of times he'll just brainstorm, up stuff, or he'll hear somebody else talk about it, or he'll brainstorm it and make video of it and tell you how it comes out. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's, not not so good. And he'll be honest, he'll tell you if it's how good it is, or if it's not, or if it's worth your time or not. What's going on, Kimbo? Blueberry black cat banana mash. No, brother, but I mean, you can mix any kind of fruit combos you want. It's awesome, but you don't want to get too much going on. You don't want to get conflicting flavors and competing flavors and stuff like that, and get a lot of you know mixed. When you taste it, it's like, so banana and certain things go well together. Like strawberries, bananas work well together. I'd say blueberries and bananas probably be all right together, but there's probably other things that bananas might not be so good with. But it's all just according to your taste. Everybody has different taste buds and likes. That's like we were talking about the syrup, adding the syrup, to your drink, post flavoring it, just to taste. It's whatever that you like the best, and if you like it, chances are a lot of other people are going to like it as well, because we all tend to like about the same things. Some people like it a little sweeter than others, but we all tend to like pretty much the same thing. What's going on, Morgan? Good to see you, brother. And the other Morgan, the Shadow. What's going on, Brian? Hope you're doing well, brother. No problem, brother. That's what we're here for, man. Ask all your questions that you got. I mean, there's no dumb questions here, man. Nobody's gonna knock you for your questions in this group or on this podcast. That's what we're here for. Everybody, has the same questions. Nobody was born with this knowledge. You had to gain it some way, whether by trial and error, by reading it, hearing it, reading it, and then experimenting with it. That's the best way to learn, really, is to read about it, learn about it, hear about it, ask you questions, and then take it home and put it into practical use and see what you get, and then adjust things. That's the art of it, is being able to adjust things the way you like it. So after you make it and you drink it, and you think, this isn't bad, but I think it'd be better if, I think maybe next time I want to try this, and try different things and experiment, because that's how we, happen into some really good stuff. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, people don't understand how a true brandy comes off the tap. A true brandy, infused and everything to get flavor, you'll be able to tell what the distillate is when you drink it. That's about it. You'll be able to get enough hint of peach or banana. And now some fruits and things will, smack you in the face, a little bit more than others, like a melon or a pear. There's just not a lot of flavor coming off some of those things. So a watermelon, I should say. So not a lot of flavor coming off those. So it doesn't really, you can drink it and say, that's good, it's sweet, but I'm just not picking up, what it was made with, you know, and so being able just to be able to take a drink and say, oh, that's a pretty good strawberry brandy, or that's pretty good banana rum or whatever. If you can tell what it is, then you're successful. That's a successful brandy without a post or a really extreme steep. But steeping definitely helps. I mean, infusing definitely helps. And but in the post, if you want to, I've heard people steeping before, and just put the fruits in there and just let it kind of soak the flavor out of the fruits. I used to get it like that when I was a kid. There was a moonshiner there in town on Town Mountain that, he'd put peaches and grapes in there, and then stuff would absorb a lot of that alcohol, man, and it smoothed the alcohol out quite a bit, but the fruit itself would absorb alcohol. So I'm assuming that the actual liquid probably was losing some proof, because there was more alcohol than water in that fruit. So I'm guessing, um, it was soaking up a lot of alcohol, and it smoothed out the liquor. And man, that fruit would be really strong. Yeah, and other preservatives and stuff, in the cereal, yeah. And iron, try not to get any cereal that's fortified with iron. Iron's a big concern. You don't want iron. You don't want iron in your water. If you got well water at home and it's got a lot of iron in it, find another source of water, because that's definitely going to hurt your fermentations, and it's not going to be good at all. But yeah, preservatives, salts, and sodiums, those aren't real good for your fermentations for sure. What's going on, Jeff? You did add the amylase. Awesome, awesome. Well, that'll definitely help. Did you add the high temp and the glucose, or that'll definitely help if you heated it up and add that at the right temperature? That'll definitely help convert the flakes, so you'll get a little extra sugar out of that. That's awesome. Yeah, there's blackberry extracts, or a lot of times people will take these frosty, these snow cone syrups, and use those for infusing. And those are pretty cheap, concentrated, and it's already got the sugar in it, so it saves you on the sugar, having to buy the sugar and mix it. But I know a lot of those snow cone syrups are pretty good. Or, like we were saying, um, concentrated fruit juices, is real good. A lot of people, try to, like, if you got an apple and it's just not coming through apple, you can go get some concentrated apple, frozen concentrate, and just put it in, start putting the spoon after spoon, into the jar, and again, with the proof, make sure you start with a 95, right? If you want a 90, and or 100, if you want to add a little bit more and make it real sweet. It's just a trial and error thing. If you add too much, you can, and you taste it and it doesn't have enough alcohol flavor anymore, you can always add a little bit more alcohol to it, right? So just kind of mix it and blend it, like a little mad scientist until you get, right where you want, and then just kind of remember how many, spoonfuls it was, or teaspoons, tablespoons, whatever you want to measure with, and just start notating it. But, call it wines and beer on your notations. Don't call it, brandy or anything like that. You don't want to create evidence, but just call it wines and beers when you talk about your mashes and your musts, and keep notes. Buttered syrup. Well, I know a lot of people put butter, in the boiler, to help, like foaming up. I was talking about earlier, you don't want to put too much in your boiler for the puking. Puking is actually, it's foaming up. So imagine you got a grain mash. That's a beer, right? You got a beer and boiling a beer. So, it's going to foam up. So you can degas it. You can take your stir and stir the shit out of it if you want to, and degas it to help cut down on the foaming up. And some people just put a little bit of butter in there, or a little bit of vegetable oil in there, or some kind of oil. Good grade. I have to say that. So that'll help, knock down a lot of the foams and stuff. So, but I do know if he really did something with some maple syrup. He did a maple syrup shine. I'd say adding a little bit of butter to that recipe, might be pretty good if you like the butter part of it. Absolutely add it in there. It's not hurt anything. Just make sure that you refrigerate it after that. And that's the same with a lot of these creams. If you use, like a non-dairy creamer, you can, those are shelf stable, but a lot of the other creamers, especially if it's real cream, you want to keep those in the refrigerator. So, if you do a buttered, probably keep it in the fridge. Um, and you might get a little bit of sediment from it after a while. Might get a little bit of butter on the top or somewhere, probably be at the bottom, I guess, in alcohol, but shake it up and drink it. Yeah, you just gotta kind of go with what you think works together. It might complement each other. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, those syrups are good concentrate. I mean, they're good. And they're good for post flavoring. If you want to, post flavor with it, they're perfectly fine. If you want something sweet that's, snow coney, they got that flavor to it's fine. What were you running, Brian? A lot of times, certain corns, like a Bloody Butcher, they have a lot of oils in them, and you'll see, as you ferment, you'll see little oils on the top. So um, don't be surprised, when you start seeing that oil leach out of the corn, because they're pretty oily. There's a lot of corn oil. That's where they get the corn oil from. So yeah, you're gonna get a lot of oils, and it just varies, from grain to grain. But yeah, corn's going to produce some oils, and in the tails, that's where you generally get a lot of your fusel oils too. So that's nothing to worry about. Now, as long as it's not something that's, being cleaned out of your steel from the prior run or something like that, that's always a possibility too. I mean, if it's like particulates, or if it's just a color, if you start seeing particulates, then you've probably got something, drying, some kind of something drying up in your worm somewhere, and it's kind of the solvent going through there, the distillate going through has kind of dissolved it from being stuck to the copper, and now it's floating around. So anytime you do that, it's just going to have to run a good cleaning run. For 8 ounces, use an ounce and a half, 1.5 ounce, 6 ounces of water, and the rest shine. Yep, sounds good, brother. Yeah, I use snow cone, syrups, and they're good flavoring. What's going on, Jeff? Yeah, you tardy. You got here before Curtis did, though. He's tardy. I don't know what he's up to. Yeah, and that's that's something to consider is if you have X amount of 150 proof shine and you add a third of water, you would expect it to be about 100 proof, right? So add that to 150 and see if that works. If it does, okay. So the next time, start with that 150, add that third, the volume, whatever the volume is, add a third of it to it, and it will proof it down and add those concentrated flavors, and it'll take it to where you want it. Like um, if you had 150 ounces and it was 9 ounces, then basically you can go 3 ounce, 3 ounce, 3 ounce. So maybe 3 ounces of water on 150, 9 ounces of 150 should be a third of water added to 150. Law of averages should take it down close to 100. Let's see. So if you got 90, wait a minute, 90. So you'll end up with yeah, that'd be a good experiment. Just check it out and start with 9 ounces, say, of 150, and add 3 ounces of water to it and see if that takes it to 100. And then, you can use that same ratio wherever how many ounces are in your pint or your quart to, a third of that. Do the syrup with the water, whatever, and then add that in there, and it should proof it down to the point where you were going to proof it down, but instead of proofing it with water, you proofed it with something that has flavor. That way you don't mess up by proofing it down to 90 and then trying to add some flavor on top of that. It's going to take it down into the 60s and 50s if you're adding a lot. Awesome. Well, I hope it came out well. Uh-oh. No conversion. So you cooked your corn. What temperature did you cook it at and how long? Sweet feed's that's what it is. When you're using the sweet feed, a lot of times actually I was just looking at a sweet feed. Here, let me show you one. Well, let me move this over from one file to the other here. But I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's see. Sweet feed. I've got one here that's got the ingredients of a sweet feed. Maybe that was a picture. Let me search for it this way. Okay. Here we go. Now let me add that to and here. All right, now I will be able to hopefully find it here. Here we go. This is what's in a typical sweet feed. And you can see soybean meal. You may be seeing some soy come off that, some soy oils. But you can see that there's a lot of stuff that they put in here that's not really ferric sulfate, for example. That's iron sulfate. Two things that you don't want in there. Iron, bad. Sulfate, bad. So not that's a lot of sweet feeds. Just a lot of people like it. So I mean, I'm not saying don't do it, but if you really dig it, make your own sweet feed and see how much better that's going to be, because it's not going to have a lot of these you know preservatives and other things in there. This iron sulfate's not going to be in there. You're going to have some of these things that's not going to be in there, and it's going to turn out better. So if you just do like get you some cracked corn, good corn, or get whole kernel corn and grind it down yourself, and then add the molasses to it. You can make your own sweet feed and bypass a lot of this shit and make a better quality product. You'll like it a lot better. You may have to adjust the molasses. Sometimes it gets a little stronger than you'd like, so you can adjust that. But let me erase that so everybody can see it, or maybe make a um, little clip of it. But this is what's in a lot of your sweet feeds, and there's some stuff in there that's actually beneficial. I mean, there's some, it's got some zinc in there that's good. It's got some. So it's got iron oxide in there, bad. Ferric sulfate, bad. You know, um, ferrous carbonate, bad. Mineral oil, you don't need. So there's a lot of things that are going into this that really you don't need. I don't even know what cobalt carbonate. I have no idea what cobalt carbonate is. It's like a new one on me. I don't know. I can't imagine that being a good thing, because I don't see cobalt in any of the vitamins that I've ever taken. I don't remember ever seeing cobalt on any of those lists. But there are some vitamins and some things that are good. But iron generally, no. Any kind of the salts we were talking about earlier, no. So make your own sweet feed, and I think you'll be a lot happier with it. But that's probably what you're getting. This is just a lot of stuff from the minerals and supplements that they add to it. All right, Kenny, back to you, brother. What temperature did you cook it to? What's going on, Dave? Yeah, I can't wait to try it. Him and Wes have tried it. Wes says his is better, and Philbilly says they're both pretty damn good. So I guess I got my work cut out for it. 190 for an hour and a half. All right. So did it get real thick, real thick on you? And could you tell it gelatinized and went from stirrable to hardly able to stir it at all? Yeah, I love it too, man. Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy it on here, and it's a good little group that we have. We got Clint comes in here and helps out. We got a few people in here knowledgeable that help out and stuff, and Steve and everybody helps out. And a lot of people, as they hear me talk about things, they're learning, and when somebody asks the same question, they'll remember what I said, and they can help out. It's awesome. That sounds pretty damn good, brother. Everybody likes that trucker corn. That with some Ohio Blue. It should be good. Well, it doesn't release pectins. Now, what the pectic enzyme does is it breaks down the cell walls that are holding. There's two things that you can do actually to the fruit to get it to do this, and basically not just fruit and vegetables too, but it's basically breaking down the cell wall. So if you got like a cell and pectic enzyme touches it, it'll start eating away at that cell wall, and when it eats away, all the all the insides of the cell come pouring out, which is a lot of sugars that the cell was storing for energy, right? That's how it works. These cells live off the energy that's stored inside of them in the form of sugars and starches, right? So it releases those. Freezing does the same thing. Water, we know when you freeze, it gets bigger. It's one of the few things that does that. Most things that get cold contract, right? But water will expand, and the water inside the cell, if it has the right water content, it will freeze and swell up, and it'll bust that cell wall, physically just break the cell wall. So you will have to have the pectic enzyme to eat at it. So it's basically opening up that cell that way. Also, boiling, once it gets to a certain point inside that cell, the liquid inside that cell starts boiling too, and it'll get to a certain temperature where the cell wall just can't contain it anymore, and it'll blow, right? So there's several ways to get to it. Now, boiling and freezing, doesn't get them, all as much as a pectic enzyme. So I like to cook my fruit to 160 to kill off any, bacteria, not any, but most bacteria that's on it from bird shit, whatever. Sometimes you can get it clean, sometimes you can't get it all cleaned off. So, I like cooking it to 160 plus, to kill that off, any wild yeast, any lacto or any, powder mold or anything like that on the outside of the fruit can get kind of killed off. And it'll also help heat up some of those, cells inside there and bust some of those as well if you get it hot enough. Then you put it in the freezer, and it'll freeze and bust some of them. But there's always like that one ice cube or a few ice cubes in the tray that just won't come out. So you might have to, a little bit of pectic enzyme, so you can reduce the amount of pectic enzymes that you use. Um, I like using the pectic enzymes. Some people don't like using them. For me, on certain fruits, like fleshy fruits, apples, peaches, avocados, things like not avocados. What am I thinking? Um, Apricots. Real fleshy bananas. Anything that's real fleshy and pulpy and apples. Pears. Anything dense and fleshy like that. You're going to benefit from pectic enzymes. Blackberries, probably not so much because all those little teeny berries is actually the cell that you're trying to bust. So if you just muddle those real good and blend them and get all those little teeny pods busted, that contribute to making the seed, like in a raspberry, blackberry, um, that'll take care of that. And so you won't even need it really. So, and blueberries, once you bust the blueberry open, there's still some matter inside there that you can, free up. But for the most part, berries like that, you don't need as much in any pectic enzymes, but fleshy fruits you'll get the benefit of. I remember the first time I ever used a pectic enzyme on like peaches. And you start out with the biggest slimy mess of pulpy peaches, and you put your pectic enzymes in there, stir it up real well, leave it, and come back a couple of days and look at it, and it's just like liquid, man. It's like, what happened to all that pulp, man? It's just so syrupy, soupy, and liquidy, and it's like, there's still a little bit of slime, but it's nothing like it was. It's amazing, and you don't have to let it sit a couple of days. I do when I'm doing wine, I'll add some potassium metabisulfates in there. If it's something that I'm cold fermenting and I don't cook everything or add hot water to, then I'll definitely use those. But I'll let it sit a day or two with that potassium metabisulfate in there and let it gas off before I add the pectic enzymes and, add my acid, blend and things like that. But yep. So yeah, freezing it definitely helps for sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying some. A bit farther to bottle. Maybe we'll get a chance to try some. I don't know. He's been getting a lot of cantaloupes and melons, but I know I went through at least 15 or 20 making mine. So not cheap mash. Those watermelons are expensive. I got them on a good deal, but still they were like $3. So that's $45. That's almost 7 bags of corn. Ergo. It's ERGOT. If you're talking about the ergo, That stuff will kill you. The grain. I don't know if they can consider that a. I don't know if that's considered what kind of organism that's considered. I don't know if it's a fungus, ergo fungus. I'll have to let me Google that. I think it's maybe a fungus, ergo fungus. Yes, it's ergo fungus. Yeah, I mean you have to type it all the way in. So yeah, ergo is really really bad. It can be very toxic very quickly. I would say some other properties that it has, but I'm afraid people would try to experiment with it and kill themselves. So it's best to get your LSD somewhere else. But um, don't ever experiment with that stuff though, because it's no, you don't. Nobody has the technology to know exactly how you're dosing it. So it's just something it's killed thousands, probably millions of people over time. It's in certain grains. We've showed pictures of it. I guess it'd be a good idea to show pictures of what it looks like. So let me see if I've got a picture of it in my files here. Up there. Let's see if I got it in my whole C drive. It's searching. Let that search a minute. So, but I'll let y'all look at it and see what it looks like. So if you ever deal with any kind of grains, I think wheat is one of the things that's most commonly, but it affects it affects a lot of different grains. But wheat, I think, is one of the most common. Let's see here. Maybe I'll just pull a pic off the internet instead of. Yeah, here's a good pic. Perfect pic of it. Enlarge that and screen capture. And yeah, I'll actually capture both of those pictures so you can see what it looks like when it's on the grain or in a bag. A lot of people mistake it for like mouse poop or rat shit. So let me share that here. Let me stop this search. And screenshots, where you at, screenshots? There you are. And it takes a while. I call it screenshots. I like screenshotting. Okay, ergo on the stock and in a bag. And we're going to put that advanced class picks. All right, now let's see here. It says pretty involved. I'm getting used to it though, getting better. That's in a different spot. Okay, here we go. Oh, not there. Here we go. All right, perfect. Now this is what it looks like. The left one. That's what it looks like in a wheat that's in the field, right? So you can see those long purpled looking seed pods that have elongated and kind of mutated. That's what it looks like when it's on the grain. That stuff is extremely toxic. It killed probably thousands, if not millions, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people, since grain has been harvested for humans. Probably millions, maybe tens of millions of people have succumbed to this. They had no idea what it was. But on the right, you'll see what it looks like when it comes in a bag of grain. And it looks like mouse shit, right? Or rat shit in there. It looks like, oh, damn it, some mice or rats been in here. Anytime you see that, just make sure you take it back to whoever provided you that grain and explain to them what that is and how toxic that is, and they can get a hold of their supplier before somebody dies. So it's that bad. So it's one of the worst things. Yep, that's good. I've heard people using vodka and spirits. That's fine. It'll kill those flies really quick, but it also attracts them and it evaporates pretty quickly. So, water or oil, mineral oil or food grade oil. Yeah, it's 65, to 75 is good, but my tap water does too. It gets really warm. If you lived like in Florida, you almost have to get a chiller or, you know, something like that. Or if you have a swimming pool, I guess indoor pool or some shit like that, or have you a chiller. But best thing, just freeze up some jugs of ice, milk jugs or 2-liter bottles of ice and, just add it, get a big cooler and just drop them in there and just recirculate until the ice is gone or the temp, won't maintain below, 80, but 65 to 75 is optimum. Up to 80 is okay. And that tells you time to add another jug, so just keep adding jugs to it. And by the time you're done, you'll know how many jugs you need at a given, outside temp. Indoors, it's not as bad, but you'll be able to regulate it. Like I said, 75 degrees, and it took, you know, 8 2-liter bottles to keep it cold throughout the whole run to the tails. Then, keep 8 to 10 on hand. So it did thicken up good. Well, that's good. And then what were you using, the high temp alpha and the powder that come with it, Kenny? Yeah, just make your own sweet feed. Yes, sir, man. It's a lot of fun, and we learn from each other. There's a lot of stuff that I've learned in here from you guys. So we're all learning together. Yeah, the blues are the best. The Heil blue. It's that trucker's that trucker's corn is I heard a lot of good about that. I've not tried it yet. Awesome, awesome. Keep buying grain from SITC, hoping to win. Still in the clear. That's cool. That's awesome, brother. Yeah, I might jump over. Most of the people that watch my podcast don't do it live. I'd say less than 10% watch this live, and we all watch and ask questions and have a good time together. But 95% of the people that watch it pick it up some other time, during the week on their breaks or listen to it going to work or, you know, whenever. But they listen, I guess, at their convenience, which is cool. I'd like for them to get on here and ask questions. If you got any questions, you're listening to this, and I'm not live. Try to catch a live if you got any questions, and we'll definitely take care of you. But yeah, I've watched a few of Cyrus's, but I never get on there live. I'm one of those 95 percenters that catch it at some other time. And for most part, most of the podcasts I watch, very few of them I get to catch live. I'll just pick them up and scrolling through the groups. Oh, I missed that, and then watch it. So that's. Well, There's Clint. Glad you can make it, brother. Tardy again. Tardy. He just sneaks in with a little comment. Did you say something earlier? Did I miss Clint? I'm scrolling back. I didn't see it. He's trying to sneak in under the radar. And I did that when I was in school. I try to sneak back into class. I was tardy all the time, trying to go out to the smoke area and catch my smoke before I went to the next class. Get beta glucanase. There you go. Or pulinase. There's quite a few of them A's. Those are polypeptides. I've been reading up on that. And there's a peptidase that breaks down the polypeptides. That's what a lot of that glucan is, polypeptides. And they call it a peptidase that breaks down the peptides. Polypeptides. That's cool. Well, that'll work too, brother. One way to skin a cat, ain't he? That's why it's good to have that shit, man. If you don't get a good conversion, like Kenny said, put that on it. But we also got to figure out, maybe the amylase is denatured. It's real hot, and well, the high temp shouldn't denature though. It's not that freaking hot. So, interesting. Something wasn't right. What's all over your corn? Ergo? I bet you got smut. Let me see your pic. Send me a pic of it. Yeah. And isn't there a wild lettuce? Has that lettucine in it? But you can get it off that ergo too, but it's dangerous shit. I definitely. All right, let me look at Kimbo's pic. That's smut, brother. That's corn smut. That's actually considered a delicacy in some places. So, yeah, all right. That's actually edible. You can cook that up. But that's called smut. SMUT. But I'm glad that you remembered the ergo and inspected your grain. That's awesome, brother. That's great. That tells me, if one person does that and looks at this and sees it and recognized it, I've saved a life, because they'll see that, they'll remember that ain't mouse shit in this grain. That's fucking ergo. Or that, they'll see that grain and they'll be like, that's not just some genetic mishap. That's fucking ergo fungus on that fucking grain right there. And then you start looking at other grains in the field, and you need to, whoever's growing it, you need to let them know, you got ergo. That's a big, big, big problem. But yeah, brother, you got smut. Read up on smut. A lot of people like smut. They look for corn with smut on it. There's a lot of smutty people out there that like the smut. But do a Google search on smut, and you'll find that there are a lot of people like it. It's considered a delicacy in a lot of cultures and stuff that grow corn. So yeah, it's not a biggie, brother. You're good. I'm glad you're observant like that though. That's good. Yeah, you can get too cold. It's you can get to where you don't want the oils to start saponifying when they come out, because you want the oils to mix with the acids to esterify as you jar age or age it in a barrel or something. So you don't want to saponify some of those oils and make them. Sometimes you can even make them drop out of solution. Um, Also, you can inhibit the flow. It can thicken the distillate up to where it gets gets thick and syrupy. I doubt you're gonna get so cold that it's gonna clog it or anything like that, but it might restrict the flow. If it gets real super cold. I mean, if you super cool it, but um, yeah, it can easily get too cold. Again, 65, 75 is an optimal range. A lot of people are under the impression that it has to be real cold to condense it. Now, I will say that in like the beverage stills that come with a little teeny pot that's got the little teeny coil in it, yeah, you're going to have to keep that cooler than, it's going to be hard to regulate that and keep it at about 65 to 75. So, yeah, you're going to have to, drop your little bottle of water. You got the little coils like that, move that center coil out of the way so you can drop a little frozen um, bottle of water. Yeah. So freeze one of these up, and it should just fit right in those coils, and where it's got ice in it, it'll help keep it slow. But the way those are is not enough. The pipes small that feed the water in and of course out that's the same size, so you really can't push water in or it's going to overflow, and it doesn't want to drain out the top drain very well, um, because it's the same size as the bottom, so you have to reduce the flow going into it to how much can drain out. Generally it's better to have a much larger hole on the top, that way it can drain out faster than it's feeding in, and that's definitely optimal. So if you want to modify it, chances are I just throw away the whole shebang. Maybe keep your copper for something else, but and make you a worm in a 5-gallon bucket, and that way you can upgrade, to whatever still you want, and still use that 5/8 coil in a 5-gallon bucket. 30, 40, 50 gallons still. You're still going to be able to use the same condenser. But good question. Yeah, that you can actually get too cold, especially um, if it's a smaller one, like the little Beaver thing. It's not going to be so much like that. But on a regular one where you've got an adequate size, like a 5-gallon bucket or something like that, yeah, you don't want that water ice cold. Ice cold probably not going to be an issue, but I saw some people using liquid nitrogen to cool and stuff like that, and it's just getting crazy. No, no, no. You don't want to super cool it like that. High temp, thinned it out, so it gelatinized, and you debranched. I mean, maybe something was wrong with the iodine. What did it turn yellow, or didn't turn at all, or what happened when you did the iodine test? I mean, oh yeah, yeah. I'd say well, on Facebook, shoot, we get anywhere between 500 and 1,000 views per episode. That's just on Facebook, and then on YouTube, man, it's how many thousands. I'll do even better. I'll give you Phil Billy's, and you watch the video. He just did a video on it. So let me pull that up and get you the link for it, and you can follow that. Maybe Big Easy. Maybe it's Big Easy that did there's a 45-minute video on it. That might have been Big Easy. Let me see. One of them did it. Man, I've got so many subscriptions. Here we go. I don't know if Ian did it on a Still Talking video or if he did it on Phil Billy. Let me see. Yeah, he's probably done it on Phil Billy. Let me scroll through here real quick. Yeah, he's done it on Phil Billy's. Okay. Um, All right, here it is, brother. After this, now you can't watch the video until after the podcast, but after the podcast, go watch this video of old Philbilly. That's probably about as good a video as you'll get till I do one. I like ribbing my brother. Me and Philbilly pretty tight. All right, Gary, I've hooked you up, brother. There's the link. Save that link and then come back and watch the podcast. Oh, let me see what's going on with my Distilling 101 page here. That link didn't carry over to that, but it's still going on there live, so we're good. All right. I didn't share it there, but that's okay. People can see it on here. But yeah, just copy, paste that and check it out. Yeah, the smut is a fungal disease, but it's a good one. It's one that you can actually eat and consume, and they say it's a delicacy. So read up on it, man. A lot of people hunt that. You might be able to sell that to somebody that somebody that's like smut. I remember growing up. When somebody would talk about smut, it was usually like porn. That was a smut magazine, smut. Now that was always I guess a term for dirty or bad or naughty, but they were called smut mags, right? Y'all remember those days? Probably don't. Probably a lot younger than me. Is it that? I'm gonna have to try some. Hopefully he'll bring some. If not, I'm gonna have to try it. But yeah, it's watch old Philbilly's if you want to get some moonshine. Now I'll give you a little hint. When you go to Philbilly's moonshine page, right at the very top, you'll see where it says home, video, shorts, live, playlist, post, and then you'll see what looks like a little magnifying glass, right? You'll see a little magnifying glass, a little thing on the side of it. So yeah, that's my all-seeing eye, man. I have to use that. But right next to that, if you click, you can type in words. So like right there, I just typed in watermelon and everything he's done, watermelon wine, how to make watermelon moonshine, complete step-for-step guide. He did that about 11 hours ago. This one's from 3 hours. Let me see this one from 11 hours ago. Here's the step-by-step. So let me get that one for you. Yeah, Philby does some great stuff, and I've always wanted to do videos like that, but it's like I never can find the time. So we'll see if that post in the 101 page didn't have a hit this time. So that's good stuff. But yeah, check that one out. That's the step for step. So that right there, Gary, should hook you up, brother. That second one probably be the best one because it's step for step. So he's breaking it down and kind of going over each thing. I've seen them. I've seen most of them. So um, yeah, the step for step probably going to be the best one. The easy recipe that might even be a little post flavored because it's red in his hand there. So that might best be a little post making a moonshine or a watermelon post. But the step for step should definitely be a good one to watch. And for those that haven't gone, man, you got to binge watch Philbilly Moonshine's page. He's done so much different thing. You can just type in stuff. He's been doing it for years on there. So just go in there and just type up anything you want to see. You probably type in, like I was saying earlier, you probably type in Fruit Loops, and I guarantee I'm gonna try them. Fruit Loop, is that one word? Yeah, maybe one word. Let's try that. Fruity Pebbles, close enough. Oh, it's funny as fuck. I knew he'd done something like that. Yeah, man, just type in that little search area, and if you want to look for peach, because literally hundreds of videos on there, man. You can just spend days watching it. You know, it's a lot of entertainment, man. It's funny as shit. Billy's funny. You know, he's a good guy. He makes some good jokes and spreads on some good knowledge. And you'll see some non-related stuff on there, like that big chicken sandwich that looks so fucking good. I remember he showed that. Man, look at that thing. Fucking makes me hungry looking at it. Popeyes don't make one like that. That's the benefit of living out in the country. Yep, see, he loves us all, sinners and all. And we appreciate the bountiful gifts and fruits and vegetables that he gives us. Oh, man. Glad it's cooling down. How about you all? First damn weekend. It's been cooling a while. I guess we'll have to mow grass. Got the front mowed the other day. It's nice. It's like 70 some degrees, and I didn't feel like mowing, but I'm like, damn, I'm gonna mow my ass off like 70 degrees, man. 70 something. Because it had been 90 something all week, almost 100. I'm like, man. And it's like my yard doesn't look bad, but there's one patch of this tall fucking, I don't know if it's tall fescue or what, but it's just a patch, and it's right out fucking front, right out next, it's between the curb and the sidewalk. So everybody can freaking see it that drives down the street, right? And it looks bad. Then the rest of the yard looked just fine, but I don't want to break out the mower and just knock down the tall fescue or whatever the fuck it is. I'm gonna get in there and I'm gonna deroot every bit of that shit, man, because it makes me mow more often than I need to. And my neighbor, he uses a lot of fertilizers and shit. So my side yard, where his kind of, you know, broadcasts over and hits on me, my damn grass is thick and lush and grows fast as fuck. And here I'm trying to train my grass to be slow. You know, I'm the days of the lush lawn are over for me. You know, I'm getting old. I got a push mower, and I just don't give a fuck if it's green and lush anymore. I don't know that's bad, but I don't want to have a heart attack out there mowing that grass either. Yeah, you gotta put your hearing aids on or your blinders on if it bothers you. I don't imagine too many people it bothers. What's going on, Scott? For those that just tuned in, the picture you see here is called ergo. And I can't stress this enough. I should probably mention it in every class because it's extremely toxic. And anytime you see that on your wheat or in your grains, you think, oh, it looks like mouse poop in there. You know, look at it real closely. And chances are, if it's a dark black purplish color, uh, whether it's rat shit or ergo, you're not going to want to eat it. But yeah, if you see that, you need to definitely contact the supplier, let them know, and get you a bag, exchange it for a bag, and let them get in touch with the people that supplies them. That way, they can put a recall out on it because it's extremely toxic and it can and will kill you. So that's why I'm leaving it up there for everybody to see. I want, Kimbo got him some corn with some smut, and he remembered. And it does look very similar. You know, it's similar, and it's a fungus, and it gets dark like that too, but it's a little different. But yeah, always inspect your grains and look, because over the thousands of years since we've been farming grains and selectively breeding grains and stuff, ergo's been around, and it's a killer. Well, that's why I try to mow when it's hot and dry. Kill that shit off. Instead of waiting until right before it rains and mowing like you should. Just mow that shit when it's hot as fuck and just beaming down and just burn that shit up. Yeah, I've seen them actually spray. They do that out west and stuff, man. They have people come in and just spray the yard green. Yeah, I've only got like a third of an acre. I'm in town, I'm not where I want to be, but I don't know. I'm getting older. I always wanted to be on the farm, and let my ex talk me into buying a nice house in a really good school district. It's the best school district, so we got it for her daughter, so she could have the best schooling and stuff. And yeah, that was important to me. So I didn't get that farm I wanted. I ended up getting a house in the city. But now that I'm old, it's like I'm not far from the hospital either. So, and the doctors and everything's convenient, and I don't have a lot to mow. So it has its benefits now, but I wasn't happy when I was younger. But now that I'm old, it's okay. I just wish it was all above grade. I hate walking down the steps to the basement, but I love having this cool basement. Yeah, I do too, man. It's funny as fuck. Just like that, funny as fuck. But, you know, this isn't really a PG show or something that for the kids. It's not like Moonshiners, the show on TV. We're talking about making it and consuming alcohol. So anybody watching and learning this should be 21 up. So they should be able to deal with a little bit of cussing. Yeah, yeah, you can use your eye. It's just, anytime any of those grains like that, that's a flour, it's just ground up finely. Now it's going to be thick. It's going to be messy. I would use it in conjunction with corn. But if you want to do an all rye, you can. But as we were talking about earlier, having a good polonaise or peptidase or beta glucanase to help break down a lot of those glucans. Would help a lot if you do an all rye because it can get quite messy, and the finer the powder, the messier it gets because the more of those starches that are getting out. So and glucans, so it gets a little messy. I definitely would do it along with some cracked corn, and if you want to do a rye that way or something like that. But yeah, it works fine. Try to avoid any kind of rye though if you buy it from the store that says fortified or enriched. Look for those two words. Because a lot of times they add iron, they fortify and enrich it with vitamins and irons and stuff that you don't want. So look for those words. Yeah, Richard, it is. That's the ergo. It's ERGOT, but the T silent. It's just ergo, um, and that's the way it looks when it's on the grain, and that's the way it looks when it's already picked and in a bag. It looks just like mouse got in that bag and pooped. That's what I would have thought for sure when I first saw it. I thought, I just would have mistaken that for some mouse rat poop and gone on or thrown it away. But yeah, yeah, you definitely want to use amylase just like you normally would. I mean, your rye has starches just like any other, you know, grain, and you'll want to convert those starches. You don't have to if it's like a malted. You can use the malted rye in conjunction with your corn to help actually do the conversion. So if it's malted, you'll have to release those amylase that are naturally in it, but in order to do that, you have to malt it. But you can, yeah, you can use high temp amylase, or like we were talking about, the beta glucanase helps a lot. Sebflow, yep, yeah, Yeah, it is. It gets real spicy and kind of hot. A lot of people don't like rye because of the spice and the peppery spice it brings. But I used to not like rye, and I used to not like sour mash all that well, rye or sour mash. But as I've gotten older, I kind of like them now a little bit. Not as much the rye, but the sour mash. I like sour mash more now than I did when I was young. I wasn't a big fan of it when I was young, but yeah, I like it now. Yep. Yeah, it just looks like mouse poop. I wish I could. Let's see if I can. No, I can't enlarge that. But yeah, it looks just like mouse poop. I've been looking, Clint. Who makes that Sebstar and all that Sebamil and Sebstar? Oh yeah, yeah. It's in cherry pits. It's in apricots, peach pits. It's in a lot of stone fruits. The actual compound in there is called amygdalin, and that's the toxin. And basically, this amygdalin breaks down into a cyanide base, and yeah, you don't want to crush. Um, it would take probably a lot of apple seeds crushed. It's not just the seed itself. If you were to swallow an apple seed, it generally I don't think there's enough acid in your stomach to break down the seed wall. So you're probably just going to shit out a seed and hope it doesn't get stuck in a polyp or something and it become a problem. But yeah, same with peach pits. A bowel obstruction may be the biggest risk, but it's not going to bother you. But once you crack those open, then you start releasing some of that amygdalin, and it can be a problem, especially if you get enough. So if you got like a bunch of cherries and you want to make a cherry shine, don't just decide to mulch, run them through a grinder or through a blender and just blend the seeds and all up and break them all up and mix them all up together and stuff, because it can make you very sick, or given the right levels, can kill you, if you get enough of them. And someone said that they thought that the temperature that you distilled in would get rid of it. Alan Bishop chimed in. He's like, it doesn't break down to like 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So, it's pretty fucking temp stable, that cyanide base is. So it's not something that's going to cook out of you, or you're going to distill out, kind of like anonacin, like in pawpaws has a toxin in it called anonacin, but you can cook it out, and distillation will remove that, so it's not an issue. But the amygdalin, yeah, you don't cook that shit out, and it becomes a risk. I've seen some people say it's not, but they were speaking out of line or out of ignorance, because it does and it can. But certain ones are a lot worse than others. There is a certain type of cherry pit that's extremely high, and it's a common cherry. So yeah, just that's anytime you deal with any stone fruit or anything with a seed or a pit, try to remove them. Watermelon, anything that's not going to sit in there that you're going to strain off, right? That you strain out really quickly as you pulp it. Because I did some watermelon earlier, and there's a few seeds that got blended, but they all got run through a strainer, and almost all everything gets picked up. So it's not going to be an issue if you do something like that. But if you ferment with the cracked seeds in there and let it go throughout ferment, distill with it, it will probably carry over, and it can make you sick as a dog. Yes, sir, sure can. But yeah, be careful with seeds. It's best to remove them if you can, especially a big stone or a pit. Why not? It's just part of breaking everything up. But glad you brought that up, because it's important. That's we're all about safety, and that's one of the primary reasons I'm here, so people enjoy the hobby and do it safely. And that's why I like to bring out stuff like amygdalin and anonacin and Nisergo and lots of other things that can fuck you up. And these are things that we need to know. What I missed what grain bill. So if you're going to make a rye, are you going to add that rye to your sweet feed? I would actually, when I was looking for the sweet feed ingredients, I saw a recipe for sweet feed, but it's best to make your own if you can. And you're paying more to have them put a lot of stuff on there that you don't need. So best just to go and buy you some corn kernel, get you some yellow dent corn, deer corn, whatever, deer corn, yellow dent, whatever. Um, some call it the deer corn because a lot of the deer corn's stuff that fell out of something that they want to sell as a food corn to other animals. They just shovel it up off the floor and shovel it into the deer corn bag. But some places are a little more hygienic than that. But yeah, just get you some corn that's just grain, just the corn kernel. You can get a Tractor Supply anywhere. That's a yellow dent number 2. Buy kernel wise. That way you can keep it in the kernel and it stays fresh inside that kernel for a long time. Whereas if you get like a cracked corn, it'll get stale on you pretty quickly because it's been cracked and it's oxidized and it's been opened up. So, but yeah, get you good fresh kernel corn and mill it, or get you some good fresh cracked corn and pour your molasses over it and use that. That's sweet feed, without all the other shit. So you don't need all that other stuff, and some of it's got pellets and shit in it, the supplements. Oh, those are the worst, man. Oh God. They make the worst moonshine ever. You just waste time, money, and everything. They're horrible, the pelletized. So yeah, it's best just to make your own sweet feed. If you like that molasses corn combo, which a lot of people do, you can adjust your molasses to corn ratios when you make it, and dial you in some really good, you know, good shine. Yeah. Yeah. Well, as long as you don't chew the seeds up and just swallow them, they just pass through your system and nothing happens, because the butyric acids and the acids in your stomach aren't strong enough to break those seeds down. That's their full purpose. Actually, they want an animal to eat it, to consume it, walk along, shit it along the path that they're walking, right? With that seed in the shit, that shit's going to fertilize the seed and it's going to grow. That's how plants propagate. So they don't want that seed breaking down in your stomach. So they evolved into a hard, a hard hull on that seed that won't allow the acids to break it down so it could live in the animal's stomach long enough for it to pass through the shit, right? That's how they evolved to there's a lot of birds that eat a lot of this stuff and carry it around and shit it somewhere else. I think that's how everybody ever uh but mulberry tree, I think every one of them grew out of bird shit. Advanced enzyme technology. That's cool because I was looking at some and trying to find out who made it and all that, and didn't say I couldn't see it on the label and stuff. And on Amazon, it just said moonshiner. And I'm like, is this somebody getting something from somewhere else and just relabeling it, or which could be, that's done a lot with enzymes. But I was just curious as to, is this something that somebody else is making that they're just rebranding? Yeah, exactly. You don't want those pellets, bro. They're nasty. So is it still hazy, Dave? Is that what you mean for sediments, or it still has the haze to it? Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, we have a good time on here, man. Sharing the love, sharing the knowledge, and helping everybody in the craft and the hobby. It's a great hobby. It's a lot of fun, and we just want everybody to be safe and enjoy the hobby. And if you're not successful at it, it can bring stress instead of happiness. So we wanna work through all those stressful situations and make it an enjoyable hobby for everybody and work out the problems. But that's why you're here, and I appreciate it, man. And for all those that haven't already, if you're watching on Philbillies, hit that like, subscribe. That way, whether I'm putting up a video or Philbilly is, you will catch it, and it's entertaining. You'll learn from both of us. We may say different things, we may disagree on a few things, but for the most part, we're in agreement on most things. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we want people to have fun with it. And Phil Billy definitely has a lot of fun with it, man. He does a lot of different stuff, and that's a lot of fun. It's fun for people to watch and try. Once people get started doing it, they'll start with sugar and corn, and next thing you know, they're doing Fruit Loops and, and Sugar Smacks and Fruity Pebbles and shit. Just to see what all they can do. Oh hell, I've had these 5 boxes of cereal I got cheap for 99 cents, and they've been sitting in there for a year now. They're post dated, a little stale. I wonder if I can ferment these. Yep. Yeah, just look for pellets in it. If it's pelletized, it should say, or if you open it up and you start seeing anything in there but corn, yeah. Run it out though. It'll be a good experience for you. Run it out, see what you think about it, and then the next time, just go get you some whole kernel just a bag of corn. The deer corn, whatever. I like it when it's just labeled as corn. Let me see what tractor calls it. I can't. Let's see. Shell corn, what they'll call it a lot of times. Whole corn. Trying to look at all the different. There's a lot of different terms for it. White dent. There's some places, if you find some places that got white dent, that's pretty, god damn, that's expensive. Man, that's pricey. Yeah, never mind. But like Producer's Pride, whole corn, a lot of them will say whole corn. It's just the whole kernel. It's all yellow dent. A lot of people say that's for feed, that's for animal feed. And yeah, it is for animal feed. It's for deer feed. It's for, grinding into a flour to make cornmeal from. It's used in making your Frito corn chips. It's used in making regular corn chips, like these. It's used for lots of different things in food products. So it's just not for animal feed. A lot of people try to say that's not for human consumption. It's just yellow dent number 2 corn, people. It's nothing. There's a lot of varieties of it, but when it all boils down to it, it's just a starchy corn, and it's used for many, many purposes. Now, there may be grades, if a farmer's, not real happy with his crop and it didn't do real well, and it's immature or something like that. That might not be a good. He's not going to sell it to somebody that does food for grain, like grains for food, because it's not going to be up to par with what they expect. So he's going to hurt him. They're going to be like, yeah, we're going to have to cancel our contract with you. So that's when he takes it over with. Is this good enough for deer corn? Yeah. Okay, let's just go ahead and crack it up and mix it with some molasses and other shit, because it's the bottom of the barrel. It didn't turn out well. It's nasty, or, so a lot of times, the sweet feed ends up being, and I wish we had Sean Peterman on here. knows a lot about grains and stuff, and he used to work at a mill and stuff, and he knows a lot about it. But a lot of times it's the grades. It'll get graded as it comes in there. So if it's a lower grade, yeah, it may go to this or that. But most of the bagged deer corn that's bagged by a big, like Producer Pride or somebody like that, they're not going through here and selecting, oh, this kernel looks like it's food grade. This kernel looks like it's, animal grade. This one looks like it's, good for maybe, they don't, nobody can spend the time, to grade it like that. So all of it gets used, it's just yellow dent #2 corn. And so it's not just for animals, even though it's got animals on there. That's what most people buy it for, is because it's not really good to eat, right? Who wants to boil up some old starchy corn and eat it? I've eaten field corn when I was younger, and you can eat it. It's not going to kill you. It's just not sweet. So if you're expecting a good sweet corn flavor, you're going to be disappointed. But you can eat it. It's okay. It'll fill your belly. It's not the best though. But it's got a lot of starches in it, and you can actually get more sugar out of a $8 or $9 50-pound bag of corn than you can out of a $9 10-pound bag of sugar. So think about that. Once it's converted, you got to convert it first. Don't Kenny, gotta get that shit converted, brother. We got to figure out what. Did you use your glucose? I just wondered if it's not the iodine or it's just. But did you get any kind of gravity reading at all on it? Yeah, yeah. That's what I didn't read what you said there, but yeah, exactly. A lot of times if the farmer's not happy with what he's got, he's not going to take that to the food mill, right? He's not going to take that to some place that grinds it up to make cornmeal for food products. He's going to say, fuck, that didn't turn out well. Might as well just make some silage out of it or something like that. Or take it over and, have it ground up for some cracked corn or for animal feed, or for some sweet feed. Exactly, my grit. Awesome. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's actually, enzymes in the seed itself, but our digestive enzymes, yeah, they break down that starch and the acids in our stomachs, the enzymes in our stomachs, and break it down, convert those starches to sugars. And those sugars, go to in the blood. Our insulin is what we regulate our sugars with instead of amylases and stuff. Right here, I can show you the picture of the sugar that's or the starches that's in our body. It's glycogen. Here we go. It's the glycogen here. But that glycogen, that's what that's the starches that our stomachs break it down to that level, and then insulin enzymes in our stomach and insulin and stuff start debranching that and converting it, into sugars and stuff that we can consume, and that are go to our cells to give us the energy, goes to our muscles to give us power. Um, it's pretty interesting. Oh, what did I say? Oh, and the apple seeds. Yeah, yeah, that amygdalin is pretty nasty stuff, brother. Oh, okay. So it's not hazy. I was going to say sometimes proteins can cause a lot of haze, and that's why a lot of times beer makers do step mashing and resting, is so they can get a lot of these proteins broken down, so it doesn't cause a haze. Because I guess a beer maker, it's kind of like clarity in a wine, it's clearness in a beer, and to make it kind of hazy, is like post flavoring a lot for a lot of people in shine. It's just you don't want that. So, or like wine, you don't want a milky looking wine. Good luck selling that. Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, they put a lot of stuff in there. We were showing earlier. It's before you got on, but I pulled this just Farmer's Choice. I think this is what Tractor Supply or one of them. What's the other one? Tractor Supply. This one I go to a lot. What's the other one? Got one in Nicholasville and another one's in Georgetown that I go to a lot. I never can remember the damn name of the other one. I don't go to it as often. But yeah, you can see all the supplements in there, man. Look at that. And I didn't even know about the cobalt, but look at this soybean meal. That's somebody was asking about they had a little bit of a brown oil, and I'm guaranteeing that's coming from soybean meal. Guarantee it. That's what that brown um, fat was from. It's a soybean oil that you were getting in your tails. But look at this: manganese oxide, potassium chloride, ferric sulfate. Now zinc's good, but ferrous carbonate. Mineral oils, okay, that'll help keep it from foaming. Iron oxide, horrible. Um, calcium pedate, calcium's good. Cobalt carbonate. I've never seen cobalt in hardly anything before. In any of my vitamin supplements. But yeah, all that ferric and all that iron, ferrous and iron, that's all similar. You don't want any of that. Iron oxide, all that's horrible for your mash. So it's just to make your own. If you love that, if you like that sweet feed flavor, which a lot of people do, a lot of people love that sweet feed shine. It makes a unique flavor. It's kind of a rum corn liquor combo, married together. So it's good. But make your own, because man, I tell you what, after you make your own, you will never want to bag a sweet feed again. You just be like, I feel sorry. I feel bad about feeding this to my fucking cow after you do your own. You know, yeah, exactly. If you run that foo and it doesn't come out good, it's your first run, so you've cleaned it out and saved it. You can save this liquor that's bad. Just make sure you put it in a bucket and put bad, and cleaning liquor only, and you can keep running that through your still to clean with. Just rinse it out with water after you do it every time, so you don't have any residue of that in there that's gonna, but yeah, you can rerun that liquor, proof it down, rerun it, run it through your still to help clean out. It's like a sacrificial run every time. But if you get some oils in there built up, you get some Bloody Butcher, and you're getting a lot of heavy oil on your next run, you want to clean everything out, just run that liquor through it, or use it for cleaners. It's great. It's great for a lot of stuff. I mean, I keep some heads handy, and I'm all the time cleaning my glasses with it, cleaning my monitor screen with it, and cleaning TV, anything that's glass. Be careful with monitors though. Certain ones are plastic and probably, haze up on you if you use alcohol, too high proof alcohol on them. But yeah, I use it for countertop cleaner, glass cleaner. It's great to clean pots and pans with. If um, anything that needs, like, talking about when you get a new steel, use an alcohol, high proof on a white rag, and just even stainless, especially stainless, rub that down real hard and clean that whole pot inside real good, and put some elbow grease into it, and then look at that white rag. It'll be gray, man, with all the buffing compounds and shit you pull off of it. You'd be surprised how much you pull off there, and that would have come off into into your distillate once it got hot and boiling alcohol, that would come off, and it would, definitely give you some off flavors for sure. Yeah, it's good to see you here, Richard. Tis Charlene. We said howdy. In case y'all hadn't seen, Charlene makes these. Let me find one here. I got it sitting over here somewhere. That one. Here we go. She's making tumblers and stuff, and can do shot glasses like this. And she's done some with. She's got the Moonshine Militia logo that she's authorized to use in tumblers and all that good stuff. Check them out. They're really nice. It is quality craftsman work. I'm trying to read this. Oh, Tumblebee Crafts. Yeah, that's what she calls her. Tumblebee Crafts. But yeah, it's awesome. I mean, you can use it for shots, or you can fill it up with wax and make a little candle out of it. There's all kinds of good stuff you can make out of these. But beautiful wood grain. Look at that. All hand painted wood grain. It's very nice. Pretty crafty, them too. Richard has the Shine Crafts, and Charlene got the art. New platform. Uh-oh. What are we talking about? Yeah, people used to send us samples. Me and Roger, Uncle Drunkle, we used to do a podcast together, and people used to send us samples, and we'd do either we'd do it on our podcast, or we'd do a special live just for that one. It's been on it when we got it in the mail, and what it was. But yeah, we did a little review of it online and critiqued it, and it is fun. Well, mine never came out sweet, Clint. I don't know. Maybe they cooked it wrong. We'd eaten it. We'd just eat it off the cob, though. We'd get it in and boil it and ate it just like it's sweet corn. I mean, it wasn't sweet, but I mean, you have to love corn. You got to really like your corn to eat it. But it's still giving you nutrients and stuff, and that was the most important thing. We wasn't necessarily eating it for flavor. It's just, you know, eat what you can, eat what you got. But it wasn't bad. But it wasn't peaches and cream either. Yeah, yeah. When they grade the corn, they get it in, and they grade it too in moisture content, and how clean it is, and how much cob's mixed in with it, and other grains, leaves, and dirt. And that's why I always laugh and say, a lot of times the shit that hits the floor that gets shoveled into the big pan and dumped into another bag, that's generally what ends up being the sweet feed, because they can hide all that with some molasses and supplements and all that shit. And you know, a deer or a cow doesn't give a shit if it's got some dirt off the floor in its food. It's eating it off the damn ground, right? So they don't care as much as what we might. But yeah, that's why a lot of that low grade stuff gets into your sweet feeds. Yeah, I've noticed, when I put it out, the animals won't touch it for a day or two. And once that alcohol evaporates off, it doesn't take long. That alcohol evaporate off. And once that happens, man, it's gone. But I've seen, they're not, most animals, they don't mind a little bit of alcohol. People say, oh, they won't eat that. If you ever been around silage, I mean, that shit ferments in the silo, man. That's when they eat that. That's they're eating corned beer. You know, I mean, it's got some proof to it. Nothing you want to drink, but yeah, it. Hell yeah, I'll sit up, brother. I'll hang. In fact, it is about time for a drink. You poop. So last sippy sip of this, 135 proof, so it don't go down quite as easy as some of the other stuff. Okay, maybe there's 2 drinks in there. That's good stuff. Weeded Bloody Butcher Sour Mash. Got me another. Got one more jar of it. But I'll have me some good old watermelon shine drink here next week. I've got to run it sometime soon. Get it ready to beat Phil Billy and Wes in the competition. That's right, toast. I just drink. I didn't even read you said that. I just kind of telepathically read that you just said that. You know, I've had some deer freeze, and I'd be like 30 freaking yards from them. It's black powder season, you know, and me and my buddy got this old black powder rifles, and half the damn barrels all rusted and corroded on them. They ain't accurate as shit. I got a better one now, but this is back in the day. I had them old steel barreled ones, and you have to keep them real clean. They'd rust up on you, and you shoot, and hell, you never know where that fucking ball's gonna go. And we had this one doe that we kept shooting at. I'd shoot and miss, and he shot and missed, and we, you know, we're running, filling it full of powder and ramming and putting the ball down, priming, shooting. I got like 3 fucking shots off, and he got 2 off, and Fort just ran off and never hit that fucker at all. You know, 30, 40 yards away. Never scared it at all. Smoke fucking everywhere, black powder smoke. It is the craziest thing ever. So you never know what they're gonna do. Straw Hat by Demon Jones. I'll check it out. Is this some of this hillbilly rap on it? Like old Chuck does? A little bit of this, if it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because hillbilly rap. Me and my buddies used to sit around and do this shit. Y'all, I watch old Big Chuck. Yep. So, hey, my grip, have you listened to Big Chuck? Welcome back, Kimbo. Cool, cool. All right, man. I'll talk a little bit louder. Let me lean in there. It's funny. Yeah, y'all have to listen to Big Chuck. Yeah, yeah, that's good stuff. Actually, I used to do something I called bird feed bourbon. There was a lot of scratch grains and millets and other stuff in it, and actually wasn't too bad. That's when I kind of played around and experimented like Philbilly does a lot, and I just play with shit. when you get bored and old. This is for the internet. Yeah, you got to listen to old Big Chuck, man. He gets down. No, man. Just Charlene, I said howdy. Hey Tammy, how you doing? I'll try to get with you on that hoodie. I've just been busy and I don't think I got your friend request on Facebook. Try to send it again. I don't remember seeing it, but I'll try to find you. All right, brother. Take it easy. Thanks for tuning in, brother. We'll see you on Wednesday. Hopefully by then I'll be drinking a little watermelon brandy. I do too. I do too, man. It's a lot of fun. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna turn this fan on. I get a little warm. Fermented boiled eggs. Interesting. Fermented boiled eggs. Now, he's talking about to eat, not to ferment. So there's a lot of people that ferment a lot of foods, man, and a lot of people don't realize it. But there's a lot of good fermented foods out there. Just look at some of the fermented vegetables and stuff that they do. It's very interesting. It's a great way to preserve a lot of your vegetables and stuff, and make some pretty good stuff. Yeah, yeah, we don't. I feel you, brother. Yeah, I can't talk too loud. God damn, had to clear my throat. I don't want to boom everybody else out. But you got to turn that music down, turn me up, man. You got to have your priority. But Mud Grips, you listen to Big Chuck? From Arkansas. Yeah, you can do the same thing with eggs. And what is it they put in with it? Like not a baking soda, but pickling lime. I guess pickling lime, hydrated lime. Let me see what that is. Water glassing is what it's called. Called water glassing eggs. I can't remember what it's called, and I'm thinking that they use like a pickling lime in it. Calcium hydroxide. Yeah, that's like pickling lime. That's what pickling lime is. Calcium hydroxide, and that's also good for raising your pH. So you get a lot of uses out of it. So it's good to have that shit. You can use it for a lot of stuff. But it's good. It's better than sodium bicarbonates. That calcium is good, and it helps your fermentation, but it doesn't. It oxygenates it, so it kicks it back into breed cycle. But We've talked about, if your pH gets into the twos, it's bad. Not very common, but it happens. But yeah, pickling lime, glass your eggs with that, man, it'll last, keep them in a jar for a long time. Yeah, I've seen those, man. I've seen those. Man, that comment wasn't there a minute ago. I've seen them eat them old ass eggs, man. They like, it's hard for them to choke down, but they like the flavor. They say it tastes good, but damn, it's hard to swallow. No, thank you. I will. Let me look you up, Tammy. Let's see. I'm looking for your picture because there's several. Tammy's in there. I see two for you. I'm trying to figure out, make sure. You might have sent that to my dad. You might have sent that friend request to my dad. I think he accepted though. Or a different Joseph Justice because I saw that it said that. Let me see, friends, mutual. Nope, it's not my dad. That's a different Joseph Justice though, so that's not me. That profile's locked, so you might want to be careful. But yeah, I remember you saying that you sent it. I guess he accepted, but it's a locked profile. You might want to be careful with that. But I sent you a friend request. I'm hoping I got the right one. There was two there. Damn it, I hit the exit button. Hey, brother, at least you're getting shit done, man. I don't get sidetracked often. Uh, Thanks for being here, brother. Yeah, we do. I've been talking about in the DIY shining stuff, page, maybe talking about, I've got Dan Gray, a buddy of mine called, Dan Gray runs Farm to Bottle on the board and runs Farm to Bottle Festival um, in Ohio. He he's into preserving a lot, and they've got a little page started, but they really haven't put a lot of effort into it. I know everybody's busy, you know, but having a good active page with some recipes and good how tos and canning and pressure canning and that's something else that I kind of came up with that I may sell through Fieldbilly's site is for those of you that have the pressure or the bever steels, you can convert those into a pressure canner if you put a pressure gauge on top and a pressure relief valve, the little spinner that lets the steam off. So we may work out a deal with some supplier out of China or something that we can put a pressure gauge on the bever steel and one of those little pressure spinners that alleviate the pressure. It lets it get to so many 5, 10, 15 psi, right? And so the different weights, it spins differently. Lets pressure build. So I did that for my beaver and to make a pressure canner out of it. So in the cap that goes on the top, the the 2.5 inch. Actually, I got it reduced and I've got it in a 2. But you just drill a couple holes in there and tap it out. One's for the pressure gauge and one's for the the steamer. Now it also, if you have the football steel on top of the lid, you'll have 2 valves that are threaded. And I think they're 1/4 inch. So if you can find you a 1/4 inch pressure gauge, you could just put one on that. And if you find you a 1/4 inch spinner, you can put it on that. But I've not been able to find any 1/4 inch. So it's just to tap out a cap, a solid cap, and drill and thread and tap in the proper threading and thread in a pressure steamer. But yeah, learning how to can. We make a lot of. My fiance makes a lot of tomato products, sauces, marinaras, spaghetti sauce. A lot of things like that with a lot of the tomatoes and peppers that I put up, and one of these days we're going to try to do some pepper jellies and corn and cob jellies and things like that. There's a lot of different things. A lot of lost art. A lot of people don't realize, foraging wise, there's a lot of things that we call weeds that actually, used to be harvested, and foraged, I guess, more so than harvested it. You would go out and forage for it, and you'd pick different plants that you knew were edible, and different things of that nature, and bring it home and cook it up and eat it, and there's a lot of good vegetables out there in the wild in your yard. Of course, it's not probably if you use weed and feed and fertilizers and other shit like that on your yard and pesticides and shit. And, probably not shouldn't forage in your yard, but out in the forest, in the wild, being able to recognize edible plants and know how to put them up and prepare them properly, and it's you can get, there's a lot of stuff out there that's as good for you as a green bean. It's got as much vitamins and nutrients as you get out of some of your best greens. It's just they weren't easily cropped. They don't grow as fast sometimes, and it's not quick and easy, and they don't produce a good seed that'll carry, pick up like you just regularly farm stuff. So that's why a lot of certain vegetables and stuff won out, because they were a lot easier to reproduce and to cultivate. But there's a lot of stuff out there that has just as much or more vitamins and nutrients than what most of the shit you get at the store. So learning to do that. What's going on, Trickster? Good to see you, brother. So and that's where I dig watching Cyrus and stuff and doing the off-grid thing. It's we need to definitely focus a lot more on living off the grid, because we're living in troubled times. And it's not when it's going to happen, or it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. The shit's definitely going to hit the fan, at one point or other. It's things going to reach a boiling point. Everybody's reached the tolerance level, and it's about to be pushed, and so the shit's going to hit the fan, and there's going to be, it's going to get pretty messy, so we've allowed China to control, just like recently they've closed a lot of the Tyson plants. Here food costs were going down, and what does China do? They manipulate it by closing down some plants, didn't sell them, just close them down and create crisis and problems, and keep those food prices up so Trump doesn't look, make Trump look bad. They keep those prices up so those eggs and chicken, prices don't drop and make Trump look good, because they don't like Trump because he's a threat to them. They need some pussy in there from president they can walk all over like Biden and the last crew. I ain't getting political on here, but goddamn, you got to call a spade when at certain times. But yeah. All right, I just want to make sure I got it sent to the right person. But yeah, it's shit's going to hit the fan. We've allowed a lot of hardened criminals in our country. We got You know, we got a religion that's out to kill us all. That's setting up shop in our own country, and we're just sitting back with our orange cross. Oh well, twiddle our thumbs and watch it happen. You know, that only lasts so long. You see England and Sweden and all those countries, they've allowed it to get to a certain point where it's going to be hard for them to take care of the problem. But maybe that's for another podcast. I don't know. Don't want to get me started on that shit. It really, I don't know. Yes, sir. Elderberries it makes a great wine. You know, it's for a lot of stuff. It's sometimes it's just too. And if you don't like wine, you know, you probably be better off with it. You know, as a shine, but as a brandy. But elderberry makes a really good wine. It's really good in combination with other things like blackberry, blueberry. You know, a lot of different fruits, you know, with an elderberry, as it will give it an extra depth and flavor. So yeah, elderberries are great, and it's just hard for me to get to the brandy stage with a lot of elderberry stuff because you know I've got some. That's just blackberry and blueberry combo. That's not elderberry combo. I got some blackberry blueberry in there and some blackberry alone fermenting into a brandy. Well, it's actually still a wine, but it will become a brandy. Yeah, we're going to have to get back to it, you know, and it's sad that, you know, a lot of people in the cities that's never lived it or done any canning or never raised a garden, you know, they're not going to know what to do. You know, us, we can get by on what we can forage until next year. And if you're like me, you should have bags of seeds at this point. Every time you get a green pepper, cut those seeds out, let them dry out on a paper towel and put them in a baggie labeled red peppers or green peppers or you know banana peppers, whatever. Save those seeds. Anytime you get melons, cantaloupe, save those seeds, label those bags, and save them. You know, I it's silly. Somebody from my high school posted on Facebook, "Where can I get some good pepper seeds?" When I go buy you a pepper plant and get them out of the pepper, you know, just let them, you know, sit out and dry out on a paper towel and you know let your pepper get a little extra done. Make sure it's ripe, fully ripened, and then open it up and use them. Yeah, dandelions, great. You know, there's plantain. That's not the banana thing, but there's also a wide broadleaf called a plantain that's very good. There's trying to think of what this one I've got is. It's really high in vitamin C, and real good. I've got it growing in some of my vegetable beds. What's that called? I can't remember, but I know it's highly edible. You can eat it raw, and it's very high in vitamin C and some other vitamins. Yeah, it's all good stuff. Yes, sir, man. All right, Dave. Yeah, third stage. What are we talking about? Islamification, third stage, uh, in winemaking. What's up, Tex? How's it going, brother? Doing good, man. Yes, sir. I got plenty of scars. Yeah, try you an elderberry wine. Try you. I tell you, a good combination is elderberry and blackberry. Real good combination. Um, mulberries. You can do mulberries too. Just you know, make sure you heat them up a little bit. You should a lot of berries. Just heat them up. I always try to get everything over 160. You know, whether it's the water I pour over the fruit or just put the fruit in the water and bring it up to that temperature. Either way, But I like getting it over 160 to kill a lot of the bacteria. It won't kill them all. There's a lot of them that 160 wouldn't phase, but a lot of the common things, a lot of things that can give you issues, especially in a wine. Um, think about the difference in distilling and winemaking. One of the primary differences is sanitariness. With a winemaking, you have to be super sanitary in everything that you do, because any bacteria that gets in there can be a big problem down the road, especially not necessarily something that's going to kill you, but something that's going to foul the flavor of your wine and just ruin the experience in the wine, and just make it something that you're going to hope that you can dump in the in the still and clean up. But yeah, elderberry makes a great it makes a great wine, and it also makes a very good complementary um, second fruit in a lot of wines. Yeah, we are. And you know, COVID should have been a big eye opener for us when everything shut down, and we were trying to get all these breathing apparatuses to deal with all the pneumonia and stuff. And there's like French companies and German companies that made these respirators, right, that we were trying to get. And what they tell us, you'll have to wait until we can determine how many we're going to need to see if we have any surplus that we can sell you. So in other words, you're fucked until we take care of ourselves. And I'm not saying that's a bad attitude to take, because that's really, as a nation, it may be considered selfish and self-serving, but it's our nation. It's us. We're the one that pay to make this country work and tick like it does. We pay for it. It's us. It's our country. So we need to be more self-sufficient. We depend on China for a lot of things, and they're manipulating us. They're coming in, they're buying a lot of farmland, they're buying, a lot of food product, like the Tyson, and there's a lot of other places that they're buying up. And all of a sudden, they get to be their major producers for chicken and a lot of other staples. And all of a sudden, we get into a bad situation, and they say, oh, we're going to shut our doors. And so we're without. And that's when the panic rises, and once the panic rises, those store shelves, I mean, hell, all they got to do is say, we're going to get an inch of snow next week, and fucking every shelf in the store will clear out. People just trying to buy everything they can before an inch snow. How do you think what do you think they're going to be buying, like if it's like, we don't know when we'll be able to get another truck to the grocery store to supply the shelves. You better get what you can. It's going to be mayhem. There'll be people killing and beating each other at the stores just to get whatever they can, and get out of there with. It's going to be crazy. The city's going to be crazy. They don't know how to forage for food. They don't know how to, go out and hunt and take care of themselves. They've never had to do it. They don't know anything about field dressing or raising a crop. So it's either they're going to radiate out to us and try to take it from us, or they're going to barter with us. So it's going to be bad. I'm afraid it's going to get real bad. Yeah, us boomers started that though. We started that a long time ago. Yeah, I can't do that on air. I would. I wish I was catfishing. I know why you ain't getting no bites. You're playing that damn rap music. Them catfish feel that beat and that pulse, that beat. Didn't have you, Gary Perry. Good to see you, brother. That's right. Yeah, it's been a hot summer, man. Yeah, it's been a hot, dry summer, and unless you're out there watering them every day. And one good thing my grandpa used to always do is he'd get a water jug and he put a little teeny hole in the lid, just enough to where it just slowly drip out. And he'd sit it upside down and he'd just put a bunch of, fill it up and let them slow drip and put those in between the tomato plants and let them slow drip. That worked pretty well. Yeah, it's been pretty dry and hot. All right. 130 proof apple brandy. All right, Dave. Limit Dave, Trickster Dave. That's the end of that jar. There's the next one. 135. Looks like the beater's higher. Maybe right. Good stuff. Damn good stuff. That is Weeded Bloody Butcher Cider. I got some other stuff down here too I need to sip on. I got some my root beer. I got some good root beer. Some of that Big Easy Peach. There's some whiskey. Not sure what that is. I don't remember who gave me that. That came from Summer Jam. Let's see what that is. It's corn liquor. Yep, that's good corn liquor. About 120 proof, 110. Yeah, man, that big jar is 135 proof weeded Buddy Butcher cider mash. Buddy Jeff hooks me up with. He's a bourbon collector. Every once in a while, there'll be a special bottle he want me to just see if I can pick up. Most of the time, I'm not able to get over. I ain't been able to get it last few times. I hope he ain't mad at me, but a lot of these liquor stores or these distillers will put special bottles out that they won't sell to the stores and put on the shelves, but they'll sell out of the gift shop, and they're very limited in number. And man, all these bourbon collectors, anytime you do something like that, man, they gotta have it. So I mean, these guys, they'll drive 10, 12 hours from three or four states just to come here to Kentucky to hit that gift shop and scoop up as many of those as they can get. They try to find a few friends to take along with them, so they can get 4 or 5 jars. Each person can get one a lot of times. And yeah, you just count the seconds, and that'll take about 10 proof off every time. You got it. Until it gets below 100. When it gets below 100, it starts acting funny. The bubbles get smaller, and then you have to start looking for frog eyes and bridging and all that. It gets a little tougher when it gets below 100 for me. Anything over 100, yeah, I can very accurately proof. Let's see. I don't know if I got Oops, wrong button. Let's see if I got a pic of it here. There we go. There's my still. Okay. Just kidding. I don't know if I've got one on here or not. I might. Let me see. Might take me a second to find it if I do. Bear with me. Yeah, I've got some different iterations of it though. It's a different configuration depending on what I'm going to do. I don't see it on here off the bat, but yeah, it's pretty sophisticated. Looks like a refinery with all the plumbing and shit everywhere. It's pretty sophisticated. But I got a lot of different valves and stuff open up and close, and deflectors, and a couple of butterfly valves, and bypasses, inline infusers, and it's pretty slick. But for the watermelon, it probably is going to be very simple, straight off the still into the condenser to maintain as much flavor and low proof as I can. Well, actually, through an inline infuser and then straight into a condenser. I doubt I'll do any deflegmating and no column or anything like that. Yeah, let's see. Let me see if I can find it. I know it's on this computer somewhere, but man, I got thousands of pictures and files. Most of them are sorted, but this one is probably just in my personal pics instead of in the distilling section that I use for teaching and references. It's not something I show very often. Let's see. And I don't know what I would have named it. I know it's on my damn phone. Let's see if it's just under my pictures. See, it's not showing me. Let me scroll through here and see if I can see it real quickly. And pears are on sale here right now, 99 cents a pound. So I think I'm going to try a little pear wine. Yeah, that seems to be the way for all of us, brother. Yeah, man. I make the mistake of throwing the shit in the garbage, like my watermelon pulp and the banana peels and all that, and I forget about them in the garbage, and I forget to take it outside, and next thing I know, fruit flies. Got to wash for the first time. Added day 6, and getting sulfur smell, pH 5-ish. That's fine. Hot. How hot? How hot is the mash, Rocky? And sulfur smell. That's a typical. If the yeast kind of get stressed sometimes, but it also depends on what what's going into it. What kind of wash is it? Just a sugar wash? 30, is that centigrade? You're gonna make me do that. 86. No, you'll be fine. 86 is fine. I mean, it's warm, but it's not gonna be an issue. I mean, it's warmer than most. Like, yeah, I got you, bro. It's warmer than most. You know, kind of like your wine yeast prefer, but it's not going to be a killer for them. What else you got in your wash? Did you add nutrients? Sometimes, you know, not having any nutrients in there can stress them. That's what I do, Clint. I put a funnel in a jar, and then some bitches will fly right in that jar through that funnel, and it's hard for them to fly up and out, you know, and hit that hole just right. So they get trapped in there, and I put some in the bottom. They'll end up getting down the liquid and drowning. It works pretty well. What's up, G. Leah's? Yeah, I wish I could do the same on here. I'll have to wait till after to get mine done. Or I could just do like I do a lot of times if you see that happen, it's because I'm doing something I don't want the camera see. But it's kind of just innocent. I'm just picking my nose or something. That's all right, brother. That's good. Half and half works great. Either way, you know, it's either way. I usually tell people to do the sugar route just for the simplicity of it. But, you know, at the same time, I think it's also a good idea to start learning to gelatinize corn and cook it and use the amylase and get an opportunity to see, you know, it's cost wise, it's probably about the same once you figure the amylase and the time and the propane, if you're using propane, you know, to heat everything up. So that propane ain't cheap. So, but it's the experience. So you're learning to gelatinize, you're learning to use your amylase, you're doing all this. At the same time, you're producing sugar cheap as shit. Me and Mikey Frame, we sat down and figured it out. You can make corn out of sugar a lot cheaper with amylase than you can just buying a bag of sugar. Sulfur smell is just hydrogen sulfide. It's common. Yeah, it's common. But I will say, anytime you have a mash with that sulfur smell in it, you really, really, really need to put your copper mesh inside that column or in that football head or whatever kind of steel you're running, because that copper mesh will help remove that sulfur when you're distilling, because it'll carry forward. That sulfur will, it'll bond to the water and stuff that's going through. So to the hydrogen in the water, the H2O. So you definitely want to put some copper mesh in line, and it'll remove a lot of that sulfur. But it's common. It is a sign of stressed yeast, and it might be the temperature that's stressing the yeast a little bit. 86 is, you know, towards the higher end of their comfort zone, but not out of the range. Bread yeast or daddy yeast, you know, chew right through that. And I think you said you're using a deity, so you know, I doubt that that's going to be the issue. Wine yeast, certain wine yeast might be a little sensitive in the high 80s, but 80, you know, hell, it's happy as lark at 86. You know, but yeah, it's just hydrogen sulfide. It's just, you know, a lot of these things are the result of stress yeast. We've talked about that. You know, a lot of organics produced. You know, like, for example, sometimes you get an excess of butyric acid produced, you know, and it smells like puke. You know, I've done my mash. I did everything the exact same way as I've always done it, and all of a sudden this time it smells like puke. No, why in the hell? And it's because, you know, when you do that, you need to keep all your parameters, because you didn't do it just like you did the last time. There's going to be something, you know, is a higher temperature, or the pH got out of range, or something happened. You didn't have the, you know, all the fermentable sugars that you had before, or, you know, temperature's getting low and it's taking longer to produce. A lot of different things can cause, a lot of sugars can cause stress, just like a sugar wash produces a lot of acid. That's why we talk about the pH crashes in a lot of sugar washes and things where you have a lot of high sugars, because the stress of just pure sugar, it's just like, cocaine to, a crackhead or something, crack to, crackheads is the more the merrier, but they get, overload, get too much and they go crazy, and it's just not good. So they tend to create a lot more of organic acids, and there's a lot of different organic acids that it can create, butyric being one of them. And it's one of those where my mash smells like puke, and and that's a butyric acid. And that's why we want to try to keep our yeast as happy as possible, give them just the right amount of yeast nutrients without going over, give them the best temperature that they're used to, and give them make everything just as perfect for them as you can, and try to keep all your parameters tight, and generally you'll be okay. But yeah, don't worry about it. Just keep going as normal, and put that copper mesh in and help remove the sulfide. Tomato, is that what you're using for nutrients? Tomato paste. Tomato paste has everything, but it doesn't have the amount of nitrogen that you need, ammonium, NH4. So it doesn't have the yan and fan. I used to say it's horrible, don't use it. It doesn't have anything, but there is a lot of vitamins and minerals in tomatoes, in tomato paste, that is beneficial. Zinc and calcium. It's got biotin's. It's got a lot of good things in there, but it doesn't have the nitrogen that your yeast really have to have. So that's where, like Fermo, we talked about last week, the Fermo, probably one of the better ones to get, that has a lot of stuff in there. But you could always supplement a Fermo with some tomato paste if you want to get even more nutrients in there and make them happy. I wouldn't recommend it on a wine. If it, but if you're for sure going to be distilling and you're not worried about it, yeah, absolutely, tomato paste will help. But you still need something to get the yan and the fan. You probably all hear me talk about yan and fan. And yan is yeast assimilable nitrogen, which not all forms of nitrogen the yeast can eat, right? Because they can't eat more than 2 glucose molecules stuck together. So it's hard for them to assimilate a lot of different types of nitrogen, but the yeast assimilable nitrogen is the type that they can eat. And so that's the yan. Now the fan is called free amino nitrogen, and it's a different form, but it's also nitrogen. And the yeast are a lot like plants. They need that nitrogen for the energy to grow and to reproduce, and so it's same part of the same cycle. It's like we need it, the energy. So that the tomato paste doesn't have. So the paste is good, but the birdwatcher recipe, if you look at it, they've got you putting in like a fucking cup of yeast. It's a crazy amount of yeast, and the only thing I can assume is that they had you putting in all this extra yeast because they didn't realize it, but the yeast were probably cannibalizing each other, and a lot of the dead yeast were getting eaten too. And that makes for a pretty stressful situation when you got yeast dying from lack of nutrition, and you got other yeast eating. Now, yeast boiled, like you get bread yeast and boil that and use that, that makes it really good. That's a really good nutrient. It's got the yan and the fan and a lot of other stuff in it. You don't always need nutrients, like when you're using malted grains and stuff, you're not going to need them. But like if you're doing just a straight corn, it wouldn't hurt to add a little bit of nutrients, because a lot of the corn don't have, unless it's malted, doesn't have a lot of yan and fan. So a little bit, just a little bit. Now you can definitely over nutrient. That's not something you want to do either. But yeah, so most things need nutrients. If you've got malted grains, you don't need them. And there's lots of things that you can use for nutrients. We've gone over that. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah, and you know the daddy yeast, the daddy yeast, it's good up to into the hundreds of bread yeast. They're good up to that range as well. So there's but like a wine yeast, a lot of the wine yeast tend to that's the upper range for them. They're not happy at that temperature. They prefer 70. Awesome. 1080 is good, brother. That's about 10%. That's good. That's a good start. Are you? That's good to know. Maybe you had to put some honey. I, I'm trying to think. Sometimes I just put some mash in there. Whatever the fruit mash is, I'll just put some mash in there. They seem to like it. Yeah, sugar washes are fine, and if you want, if you don't got any grain and you're low on funds and you don't want to do the conversion thing, you know, I can still see me at one point in time just saying, fuck it. I'm just going to do a sugar wash and run it through the column, get 185, 190 out of it, proof it down, and take all that hot bite out of it and just make a vodka and make a mixed drink with it, or just proof it down to 100 and drink it. Um, you know, it's not the best, but it fits the bill. Sometimes you just need a fucking drink. You don't want to go to the store and get all kinds of fruit, do the brandy thing. You don't want to go get grains and do the conversion thing. You just want some damn liquor, and that's where sugar or dextrose comes in pretty damn handy. But yeah, I don't mind if it's a little bit hot. It doesn't. It's still got them little devils in there, man. Get me drunk. Oh hell, that'll do it. Hell yeah, man. Yeah, once you go with all grain, that's what you'll do most of the time. But but sometimes just an old sugar wash, you know, just to make some damn liquor, just to get something run through the still to drink. Especially if you got the smaller still where it doesn't take a lot of setup. That's these air steels. I've not tried these air steels, but you know, I don't know, they're awful small. Yeah, yeah, getting a little grain kit and just following the instructions and learning and asking questions and after you do a few grain kits, it's like okay, I'm ready to graduate to a 50-pound bag of yellow dent and get me some high temp amylase and because you really it's cheaper than sugar, but it just takes time and money for propane or electric. That's why electric is so nice. It cuts the cost down a lot. For a lot of people on a budget. A lot of people can't afford to just go out and buy a bunch of stuff all the time and spend 80, 90 cents a pound on sugar. And buy corn, you can get like me and Mikey Frame. We figured out we did it down to the T. You can get if you're buying corn at a cheap price, at a good rate, you can definitely make more sugar with corn than you can for the dollar than buying bags of sugar. Yeah, yeah. I remember when you first got started, Cody. He's a pretty fast learner, man. He's worked in a laboratory and he understands the science of it, so he picked up on it pretty quickly. I've lost one, Dave. Uh, it was, I guess, earlier this year, and it's the first time I can't remember ever dumping one out, even when I scorched it. I ran it anyway and choked it down. But I ran one, or I did a mash, and it was with jams and jellies. I don't know if you've heard this story or not, but my fiance and I do. We pick a lot of fruit and freeze it and put it up, and then at the end of the year, when we get done picking, we make some blackberry and you know blueberry syrup, blackberry jams, jellies, and grape jellies, different things. So we yeah, what what was my story? I forgot what the hell I was gonna say. Oh, lost fermentation. Oh yeah, man, I'm getting old and forgetful, man. It's getting bad. I'm getting like a senile old man, man. I tell you. But anyway, so we had a bunch of this grape and jellies and jams and shit. I mean, I filled up the fucking refrigerator and I was giving it away, and I just don't eat the biscuits, and we don't eat breakfast like we used to. We're getting old, and so had a bunch. I mean, a whole bunch. Like 20, 30 quart jars, big jars full of jellies and jams, and pint jars of jellies and jams. So we decided I was just going to mash it all in and see how it ran. So we get ready to go on vacation. I'm like, well, while I'm gone, I'll let this ferment. When I get back, it should be done, right? So I put it in there, put the pectic enzyme in it, and let it sit a day or two, and then I go and check it. It's fine, stirred up real good, and put a little nutrient in there, and then put some yeast in there, and then we were gone. We were gone, I guess, 3 or 4 days, and came back home, and I might not even have checked it right when I got back home. I think I might have forgot it a day or so, but I do remember when I went in and checked on it. I pulled the lid off, and when I did, I guess it just kind of sucks the air and lifts it up. It's like spores. This is fucking just knocked me down, man. I was like, oh, and I was sneezing and coughing, gagging, all these damn spores. I just snorted and inhaled, and I could taste them in my throat, and it was like, it was horrible, and this mash had like grass growing in it. It was that green fungus. It had fuzzy gray fungus. It had reds, and I mean, it had all kinds of colors in it and shit. Oh man, and just the spores. I mean, you just see them shooting them motherfuckers out, man. It was horrible. It was the worst shit ever, man. It was. It was. Uh, yeah, it went to the woods behind the house. Yeah, yeah, Clint. It needs some nitrogen, whatever, DAP or Epsom salts or something with some nitrogen in it. It's got to have it. But yeah, that's the first one I can remember dumping a long time. I'm getting behind that. All this all chat. No, I'm not asking questions. That's good. Yeah, you're talking about the Quebec. That's a really good yeast. All right, here we go. Man, my apple brandy through the store right now. Awesome. It's about to hit 180 in the pot. All right, should be dripping soon. That's right. Sounds good, brother. Damn, that sounds real good. Just go easy on the cinnamon and cloves. Uh, yeah, all three of those are very easy to overdo. Cinnamon, cloves, and vanilla beans are all three very easy things to overdo. Yeah, I'd check them off and be ready to pull that cinnamon out and the cloves out because those things, man, it does not take much. But yeah, that sounds really good, brother. Yeah, she'll start dropping. I don't know if that's pot temp or vapor temp, but around 195, 198, you should pot temp. You should start seeing something happen. Yeah, if you're talking about commercial distillers on grains and stuff, yeah, man, they got their yeast specialized. They've got it down to a science. They got the temperature down. They've got everything down to a science. And like I say, they started about 106. They don't need this 108 shit. They don't care about getting it that high. 1060, 1070 if they're lucky. Ferment done in 3 or 4 days and through the still. They ain't got time to wait. They cycle that. As soon as that's done, they start filling it up, starting another, and they got 7 different vats for 7 different days. And they just keep cycling it, one to the next, to the next, to the next. And it was, man, it was the worst ever. I just dumped it out in the woods behind the house, and I feel sorry for any animal desperate enough to eat on that, or any bee that landed on it. What's going on, Scott? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, let me know. Definitely interested. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. You have to bring it to a festival now. Let me try that. See, while I was going to find the bottle. What's going on, Steven? Good to see you, brother. Old time shine stories. Well, not really. A lot of them. It was pretty uneventful. I remember a few times having to run through the woods and run from, hunters and dope growers and property owners. I'm glad you dropped in, brother. Well, sometimes you gain. I've seen people gain proof, man. And it was really interesting talking to the guy in a legal distillery in Rickhouse and stuff. And it's funny how some of the barrels that kind of are up in the high rafters and stuff that stay a little hotter than some of the others, and some of the ones that stay cooler. Some barrels lose proof, and some barrels actually gain proof. I found that really interesting because I would have never guessed. I would have figured Angel Share, all that alcohol leaching out right and losing proof. But some of these actually, I guess, shed off water more than they do alcohol somehow, and they actually gain proof in the barrel. I'm going to have to read more on that. Yeah, definitely go light and just taste it. After 6 hours, 8 hours, 6 days, 8 days. Just sippy sip every once in a while, just see what. Because I know cinnamons and cloves, man, they're so easy to overdo. Oh yeah, I remember. I remember. All right, we're seeing Beatty deal. Yeah, I remember you talking about that. I had I I had a family reunion that weekend and I didn't even know about it. And I've already made a commitment to Dan to teach a class there in at Farm to Bottle and do a Q&A. So I don't want to let him down. He's already putting my name in the flyer and everything, and so people might be wanting to come, listen to me and ask some questions and stuff there locally. And so I'm sure there'll be a lot of newbies there that'll be interested in how to do it. So it'll be a lot of fun. Went to make sure the location of the plum tree, and it wasn't nothing but a tree with dead leaves. Well, just let it go. I mean, sometimes when you transplant them, they'll do that, and then next year they'll take off. So just give it some extra water and a little, food spike. They got these little spikes just stick around the tree, and it may surprise you. Trees are pretty resilient, so maybe there might be some methods of trimming. Read up on it. You might cut it back. I don't know. Don't do it till you read up on it. I'm not big on all that, but I do know that a lot of times they're pretty resilient. So it may work out all right. Yeah, definitely. And I thought it was strange, but according to the pros that work in the brick houses and that work at the distilleries and stuff, major distilleries, some of it loses proof and some of it actually gains proof. So that's interesting. And it's all about where it's located in the rick house. So if it's in the upper rafters where it's hotter, I can't remember if it's one way or the other, and where it's in the middle of the rick house where it stays cooler towards the bottom, it's the other. I can't remember if I think the hot one um, may have been losing alcohol, and in the cooler areas it was actually losing more water and gaining proof. I thought that was very interesting. I'm gonna have to read up more on that, but yeah, talk to somebody that works in the industry and ask them about it. Because it's something I just learned fairly recently. That's a shame, man. The neighbor won't let you pick them, but they just fall to the ground and just die, and nobody gets to use them. That sucks. People suck like that. Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, you're not too far. We'll definitely be headed through there one day. Well, or a festival, man. Festivals is definitely where to meet everybody. Yeah, that'd be nice. Maybe we get Damon to do that, and record it, and be nice to do a live. It'll be basically what we're doing here. I'm sure the questions are going to be even more basic and very beginner level. Most of them don't even. I mean, I'll be talking about basic fermentation, about how yeast like sugar, and convert it to alcohol and carbon dioxide. So it'll be very basic. That's good news. That's awesome. I also remember pears are 99 cents a pound right now at Kroger. If y'all have a Kroger near you, Bartlett pears. That's a good price on pears. They're usually more expensive. Yeah, that's when those damn you have to worry about those cams these days. Used to you do that without having to worry. Now they got the damn ring cam on their doorbell that sees in the dark, fucking catch you. Yeah, I was reading that. I just pulled that up. I think I got a new chart that might have something about that on it. Let's see. I got an aging chart, and it's not this one, but I picked this one up for toasting. And what temperature that you toast your wood before you char it, and this is 3 hours, and this is the temperature, and this is the aroma intensity. So the time, or I'm sorry, the temperature that you toasted at will determine the notes. You definitely don't want to get up here in the acrid. Um, Kind of the middle sweet vanilla toasty. So anywhere in this range is good, which is kind of the medium toast, right? But that's not the chart I was thinking of. Um, It's a new chart that I hadn't seen before. I hope I stuck it in here. Here we go. This is a good chart right here. And this came from the Coopers here in Kentucky. But this talks about the medium, the different toasts with the different char levels. And most people go with a medium toast to number 3 char. And that gives you coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, butterscotch, amaretto, sweet toasted spices, and sweet toasted sugars. That's what most people kind of shoot for, but this is a really good chart if you all want to grab that. I'm glad you mentioned it. Man, I forgot all about sharing this. But somebody was asking about it, and I wanted to share a chart with them instead of just trying to word my way through all this. And I wasn't aware of all this and what notes. I couldn't, I mean, there's people out there that know this. I don't. But it's very interesting, and I will, matter of fact, I'm gonna add that to Moonshine Militia files as we speak. What's that called? Let me find that again. Damn it. Let me find this. I want to add that to the militia and the shit. What was the name of it? Oh, it's one of those that has a funky name. Damn. I didn't know I could edit its name in StreamYard. That's cool as fuck. Let me pull that up. Man, shit. I'm getting too many damn pics in here is what the problem is. And I'll just have to make them up and do it. And matter of fact, it's after 11 anyway, so we can do it after class. I definitely want to add that to the DIY and to the militia files. So in case you like Ben, we do have, oh, there it is. Okay, let me add it that way. Okay, let's see here. And that is advanced class picks. There. It's going to be called Toast and Char Guide. Yeah, actually, I should have renamed it before I put it in there. Let's stick with it. Yeah, definitely rename it. All this stuff, QS, all that stuff. It doesn't tell you what you're opening and what. Here we go. Why in the hell they couldn't just name it then? I don't know why it has to be alphabet soup.jpg. So let me put that in the Moonshine Militia and in the DIY group. Just a second. Let me get that in there. I have to do it while I'm thinking about it or I will forget it as sure as I'm sitting here. My memory ain't what it used to be. There we go. All right, I added those to the file. So anytime y'all need that, a lot of these, yeah, go in and put them on your phone. A lot of these I save on my phone. So especially the ones that are guides to distilling guides and temperature guides and your, step mashing. I can't remember all the temps and shit. I'm getting old. Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, that's in the militia page and on the DIY page. Definitely good info, and that other chart is good too. Hello, Miss Lisa. How are you? I was talking about you earlier. Talking about people learning to forage for different plants and holistic medicine and jarring and canning and remembering the old ways. With times the way they are, you never know. A lot of those, a lot of knowledge in those fields will go a long way in survival if the shit hits the fan. Or just having a good book. I'm trying to think of the lady. She was on the Lost TV show, survival show Lost. I think it's in British Columbia, but she was very, very knowledgeable, very, very nice, bright, easygoing person, really good personality, somebody that you can definitely relate to and listen to for a long time. She was very entertaining and positive, spirit. But she did a lot of foraging, and she was extremely knowledgeable, like Lisa is, on plants and holistic medicine and what plants are good to eat and how to prepare them and all that good stuff. So Lisa's a good person to ask. Yeah, the story. That in Illinois. Oh, New York. No, yeah. The story is a town in Illinois. Yeah, that's what I thought. Oh, one in Oregon. Yeah, I'd say there's a lot of stories out there. There's the story that I had heard of is Illinois, I guess. Nicole. Okay, yeah, that's her. But she's got a great book out on edible plants and medicinal plants and stuff. Very interesting lady. All right, y'all. It's getting to be late. It's after 11. I gotta go kiss my sweetheart goodnight before she goes to bed. So what do y'all think about Cracker Barrel change before we go? What do y'all think about Cracker Barrel changing their logo? That's crazy shit, ain't it? Taking old Cracker off there. They're like taking old Jemima off there. Why they do all that crazy shit? I don't know. I tell you, I've ate at Cracker Barrel last couple of times I've eaten there. The food quality gone so far downhill. The portions are bad. I got the chicken strip dinner. Fucking meat was like 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch thick, and just breading, all breading, and it wasn't even thick with the breading. They brought in like there's like 5 little teeny fingers. There's just nothing. And then the last time I took my dad there to eat for his birthday, and everybody, it was okay, but the meal I got the fried chicken this time, just regular fried chicken, half a chicken. Like the leg looked like one of them Cornish hens legs, and the thigh and the breast, you couldn't tell the difference between the thigh and the breast. They were so small. And it's like, man, I mean, I've never seen a juvenile chicken sold like that and fried. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of A lot of companies out there doing the craziness. Yeah, I just don't understand it, man. Yeah, definitely. Don't get involved in politics. That's why I try to keep it off the podcast, and not get political on here. I'll ask opinions and things like that, and I'll talk about shit at the fan and all that. And but every once in a while, sometimes you just got to point out idiocracies where there's idiocracies, regardless of whether there's an R or D in front of it. But uh, yeah, it's just stupid shit, man. Why? I mean, just fire that. I'd fire and sue the CEO. I'd sue for every damn penny that I ever paid him because I mean she hurt that company's stock huge, man. I mean it plummeted. I wished I'd got it in early on it. Well, to be honest with you, before they did all this shit, I was thinking about doing a reverse trade on it, a put right option, where you buy it, you actually sell it today, and you buy it a month, a year, whatever, down the road, if you think it's going to go down. Because every time I've eaten there, it's been progressively, and I use that term as a pun, progressively worse. And it's just the portions and skimping and skimping and skimping. I don't know what food service are using, but horrible. And I was thinking about, doing a put option longer term. But after this woke shit happened, man, you definitely want to go short term put on it, man, and just make some quick money. But, the window's closed on that. It's already dropped drastically. But again, I watched what's that chicken place? Chipotle. Perfect example here. There's been like 3 or 4 times that Chipotle um, has had like salmonella issues, right? At a Chipotle here or there somewhere. And it's like it's national news every time, one has Chipotle, somebody got sick, suing, plummet, the stocks just plummet. And then after a few weeks, a few months, them stocks are right back up. Everybody forgets all about that shit. They buy back into it. The stores are fine. People start going back to it. And I'd say Cracker Barrel will probably end up being the same way. Now, this isn't like the woke thing, though. This is just, that memory of wokeness seems to last quite a bit longer. We've seen that with the Bud Light and Target. But Chipotle has like salmonella poisoning and somebody's going to sue and you watch that stock lose about 10-20%, buy that shit. Because in 6 months, everybody forgets all about that shit and that stock's right back up there. It's done it like 4 or 5 times. You can go check it. Every time that stock plummets, you can read the news. That's salmonella, salmonella, salmonella. Crazy. But anyway, there's your stock tip for the day. All right, y'all. We're gonna get out of here. Gotta go kiss my honey goodnight, and we'll have a great weekend. And we will see you all again on Wednesday. Hopefully, drinking a little water now. I'll let y'all know how it came out. Till then, shine on, and again, if you got any questions, jump into the DIY page or the militia page and ask away in there. We'll answer it in there and take care of it just the same as we try to here. But if you don't get an instant answer, don't get mad because it's kind of like me scrolling through a lot of this. I get behind, and there's some days that I don't even get on there. I'm so busy. So I got too many irons in the water. You too, Richard. Everybody, y'all have a good night. Yeah. I don't know in the Cracker Barrel dip. I don't know how long this dip will last. I'm sure it will eventually go away. But the woke dips, like Bud Light, they seem to last longer. But like the Chipotle salmonella dips, every time that happens, buy it, you can make 10% on your money every damn time, just like clockwork, man. It's funny. And check it over the last few years or 5 years or whatever. They'll let you look at the stock, and every time it drops at a significant drop, that's a salmonella issue, one store or another, or recall or some shit. But check it out. Yep, everybody have a great runs this weekend. We will see y'all back here on Wednesday. Till then, shine on and take care. No, it's not financial advice. I'm not telling you, but you know, just research it. See y'all.